Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Spaza17. Welcome to the Hitcircle podcast, and I hope you are doing well. Now, I know what you're thinking. Spaza, you haven't made a podcast in 6 months. How are you coming out here acting as if nothing happened? I'm sorry, everyone, okay? Now, I was really just trying to figure out what was gonna happen with COVID and all of that. And by the time I kind of set things up, I started grinding for Twitch partnership, which luckily I got. And then I started grinding for exams in my university, which I also luckily got. And now I'm out of excuses. So I will bring my podcast back, and I won't promise anything insane like, oh yes, I'm gonna be doing it 2 times a week. Not even weekly at the moment. I'm gonna try and do it once every 2 weeks. So only time will tell whether I'll be able to keep that promise. Now, for this reboot of the Hitcircle podcast, I have a very special guest with me today. He's from the US. He's an OSU player, Twitch streamer, and has recently started making some YouTube content as well. One of the most efficient yet polarizing players in the tournament scene today, collecting over 30 badges, 3 of which are from OSU World Cups. Everyone, it's none other than Habib, aka DigitalHypno.
Oh, let's go. It's my cue to come in and be like, wow, it's so exciting. And the spot is
Yeah!
like, wow, so exciting.
Woo! Not
Woo.
scripted, everyone. So wait, let
Yeah.
me read my script. How are you doing?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I I'm doing okay. I have had this issue, especially with COVID starting, where I don't really have any structure in my days. And that kind of led to me having very inconsistent sleep schedules. Um, Not something that I particularly minded. I think it's nice to sort of have a break from needing to wake up at a certain time every day and like having things to do. Um, I just remembered that like I don't know about you, but when you have classes in the morning and you have to finish your homework before then, s- I have this really bad habit of I would just stay up. It's like a 10-minute assignment. It just takes 10 minutes and then I would just like I can do it like later and then I like end up staying up all night and then I go to sleep or I go to my class with no sleep.
Wait, you guys are
So,
doing homework? Are you not an OSU player?
oh,
What the hell? Who does that? Come on, man. Come on. Also, is it
well, yeah,
even homework if you don't do it 10 minutes before the actual assignment ends?
that's true, but I think my point is that I just kind of stay up for like morning classes sometimes. So it's kind of nice to have a break from that with COVID. But then I started having this issue where I had no schedule to my day. So I kind of had nothing to work my days around. And I think that led to me being kind of unproductive at times. And so I was like, I need to do something about this. I need to just have something in my day that I can schedule everything around.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'm pretty sure with COVID, especially if you're a student, you very much lose track of what you're actually doing because you don't have any obligations to actually leave your home. So you
yeah,
never really know what to do with your day.
yeah. And for me, like I know some people still have like lectures, online lectures that they have to go to, but none of my online classes have had scheduled like lectures that I have to attend. It's just the assignments are just kind of there and you just have to do them before they're due.
Oh
And so
God, that
yeah, so
sounds
it's
terrible.
yeah, it's very at your own pace. I mean, for me, I think I prefer it because I've taken online classes since middle school, so that's like 8 years ago probably. So thankfully, I'm very familiar with taking online classes and being self-motivated in that regard. Because like, I think a lot of people once COVID hit, it was their first time really taking school like only online, and
Yeah, that's actually
all
very
of
interesting. I didn't know you could take online classes even before then.
yeah, like I think all of the sorts of struggles that people have had with being motivated and staying motivated to take online classes, it's something that I also had to go through, but I I feel like I spent a long time in this like cycle of not wanting to do my assignments if I already understood the material. And that's like something that really frustrated me. Is like I basically had to learn the hard way that school is not about what you know. It's literally only about doing what you're assigned. And that like still frustrates me. I wish it wasn't like that, but um
Yeah, it is what it is, especially with modern education, you know?
oh, it's so bad. Yeah, it's so
But see,
bad.
now you have something in your schedule because you are on this podcast. Yes, that's awesome, right?
True.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the podcast, and I mean, understandably so, it's been a long time. First, we're gonna be talking about some OSU related stuff, obviously. Then, we dive into some chit chat about more personal stuff, if you will. Obviously, I won't ask for your credit card number or anything, that's after stream. And then I will read some questions I got from my subs. And last but not least, we are gonna be taking some high IQ questions from Twitch chat. Now,
Yeah.
funnily enough, one of the reasons why I felt compelled to bring the podcast back is actually due to a very interesting project that I'm sure you're very familiar with. So, could you tell us a bit about the Blanket podcast?
Oh, the Blanket podcast. At first I thought you were gonna mention OCPHD, which
Oh,
is
that's
another
coming for
project.
later.
Oh, okay. So the Blanket podcast was something. So I had played some. So if you guys actually don't know, it's a podcast that I did with Mr. Ed, BTMC, maybe like also half a year ago, um, and I think it sort of started because after some like team tournaments, like matches that I would have with him, we would sometimes just stay in calls and like talk just like about Osu, about different things, and like we'd sometimes mention like the idea of a podcast, and then it's like, hey, if we're gonna keep mentioning this idea of a podcast, let's actually just like put something together and make it a real thing because, I mean, essentially, it's just a glorified conversation. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so I was like, okay, Ed, let's go. Let's make a podcast. So we did it, and we basically, it was very low production value because we just wanted to have something in place so that it wasn't just an idea forever. Um, so we did 6 episodes, and then we were like, okay, let's take a break, figure out like what we've learned from these 6 episodes, and work on improving things. And some of the issues that did come up, like they're very valid points that like I talked to Ed about it recently, and valid points about um like the timing of the podcast sessions, like needing to sort of fit into his schedule better. Because like, I'm definitely like not as busy of a person as him. I'm not as like I haven't sold my soul to my content as much as he has
Ah,
yet.
yes, of course. That's the faith of every streamer, really.
Yep. Um, so I definitely understand like the struggles that he might have with scheduling because he used to schedule the podcasts on the days where he didn't stream. So he had even less days that he wasn't streaming and like some issues with that. So I kind of want to give him the space to think about that stuff and like think about what times would work best for him and also like trying to get a hold of certain people for graphics and stuff like that and like a lot of small things that like I want to give Ed like the time that he needs to figure things out. But at the same time, like if he just wants me to bug him about it like every other day, then I can bug him about it until he does something. Because I think I'm sometimes like that too. Like I will do something if you need me to, but you might just need to bug me about it. So
That's very
um,
interesting. I didn't think, because, that project was kind of a short term thing, at least from what, that was my understanding of it. And then I thought it just stopped. But actually, you have the intention of continuing the
yeah,
Blanket podcast just with higher production value in the future.
yeah, for sure. Because like Ed has also mentioned that like you don't really lose anything from doing a podcast like as a content creator. It's basically only like plus only benefits really come out of it. um like and it's good content, good like reaching out to people. I guess like you can get some networking done through that as well. So yeah, lots of benefits to doing a podcast and maintaining a podcast. So
Yeah.
it's not something that he wants to stop doing necessarily, but there's been some roadblocks that I want to give him time to figure things out.
I definitely know it's hard to get a hold of Ed or BTMC. I mean, if you guys are not familiar, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure you guys know. I
him
did
as
try
Ed.
to
Yep.
get him on this podcast, but it was a bit of a mess because his schedule was somewhere, my schedule was somewhere else. I have university lessons and whatnot, so
Yeah.
we kind of put it on hold for now. So speaking of which, Ed, if you're listening to this, mate, hey, you always know where to hit me up. But yeah,
Yep.
anyway. That's very nice, man. That's very nice. Now I fear because I do want to continue this podcast, but mine isn't really meant to be that high value, high professional thingy. It's just really more of a way, as I said, to have glorified conversations with players I like from the OSU community or just other content creators. Because I mean, that's always very interesting to kind of know what's going on with them, what motivates them, and even some of the tips that you can get are definitely very valuable information if you're willing to actually listen, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like, there's nothing wrong with your like if you want to make content, it doesn't have to be the highest production value for other people to want to watch your content. I know some people have actually Silver has said this a couple times. You guys know Silver 15. He said that like the videos that he learns the most from, that he has learned the most from, are just like completely like blank video, like no editing, just like only basically just like audio, like all audio only, but like on YouTube. Um, and
Yeah,
like
absolutely. I mean,
yeah, nothing
especially
special. Yeah.
yeah, nowadays, considering that YouTube is mostly based on, it's, I don't want to, I don't want this to come out in the wrong way. Like, I'm not saying that it's not like you can get famous by having bad content, but YouTube is mostly algorithm based these days. So the amount of
Yeah.
audience you reach is highly gonna depend on things like the title or the thumbnail and things like that rather than the actual content. So at least you can get away with having a low production value in that regard.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. But yeah, it's all about the substance and it's all about how much people actually, find value in your videos. Obviously, like something on a related topic is people who upload something like stream highlights to YouTube. And I think this is a trap that a lot of streamers who try to do YouTube, they kind of fall into, where you upload stream highlights maybe once a week, and your video titles are stream highlights 1, stream highlights 2, stream highlights 3, and it's like the same thumbnail more or less. And the problem with that is that like your clips might be really really funny, but like we have no idea like what is going to happen when we click on the video. Like we don't really know what to expect. We know it's going to be you or your stream in some way, but like is it going to be funny, is it going to be worth my time? Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
I think many people just take that from very large streamers like I don't know, XQC for example, but these are huge streamers with millions and millions of viewers. So obviously even if
yeah,
they name their videos highlight number 14, it's people are still going to watch that, but for a smaller
yeah,
content creator, it's got to have that flashy thumbnail, that very nice inviting title that makes you want to click on it,
yeah. And I mean it doesn't even necessarily like it doesn't need to be super flashy. As long as it like if people have trust in your name, it makes it a lot easier for you to just develop some sort of system with your thumbnails to where people can see it and they're like, okay, this is Spaz's video, and I know Spaz's name. He's a cool guy, so I'm gonna watch his video. And that like it doesn't always need to be like you have to make the pog face, you have to like put a red arrow. Like as long
Oh
as
well, yeah, Red Arrow is kind of out of the meta these days.
oh, is it really?
Yeah, I think so. Well, unless you're a Fortnite streamer, but
I mean, it still works. It's like it's big, flashy.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on because I know many content creators that use a similar style in thumbnails, but they never quite kind of get into the YouTube algorithm. While, for example,
Yeah,
someone like Bimphy, he used to have certain types of thumbnails that didn't really go that far, and then when he actually found out about a certain type of thumbnail where he would use, for example, his avatar, Like that's a
Yep.
very recognizable sign that that's a Bimpy video. That's his brand symbol, basically,
Yeah.
right? So YouTube started just recommending these videos one after the other. It kind of created a bit of an ecosystem, if so to speak, and
Yep.
so
Yeah.
you can add things onto it, definitely.
Yep. For sure.
Now,
YouTube is an interesting place. Yep. That's all.
yeah, at least for now, it's you know, it's very different at what it used to be in that regard, but yeah, for sure. Now, the one thing I gotta know is how and when did you find out about Osu?
So this story, there's like a bunch of ways like I can tell the story, but basically I got into, so basically it's from League of Legends streamers. Um
Oh God,
and
another one.
yeah, another
Like
one of
three people
those.
thus far have found out about Osu through League of Legends. It's always very interesting to me.
Yeah, so 2013 I started playing League, and um by 2014 I was like somewhat into the community, not the community but like streams, and I played the game pretty often with friends. And like my default sort of like content that I would leave on was usually like I would find a random League stream to watch. And every now and then, people play games in queue because they're like awesome pro players that have the luxury of long queue times. And so they'd have to find games to play. And one of the games, every now and then they'd be clicking these circles, and chat's like, "Whoa, PogChamp!
Oh my
Like
God, how does he do
this,
it?
his Asian is showing, guys." And it's like every now and then I would see this game, but I didn't really think much of it. It's just like it's just another queue game, basically, another game that they're playing in queue. But one day, one fateful day, I don't know whose stream I was on. Like, I think I clicked on a random stream that day. I mean, I had seen the game before on like BoxBox's channel, for example, because he was a streamer that I watched, but it wasn't on BoxBox's stream that this happened. But I don't remember who it was. But I like just tuned into the stream, and he was playing Osu, and then like chat was going crazy. Chat was like, "This guy is insane. This guy's mechanics, his league mechanics are like seeping into Osu." And um like some people were like, "What is this game? What is this game?" And then I was sitting there kind of like not that impressed, to be honest. I was like looking at the game and I was like, this doesn't look as impressive as the people in chat are making it out to be. So um
That's
yeah,
very
so I was like,
interesting.
like, what is this game called? I want to give it a try. So I like figured out what it's called, and I made my account that night. And I had school the next day, so I couldn't just sit there and start playing, but because it was like 11 p.m. or something. And I was like waking up really early for school. So but something I did do is when I opened the game, I installed it, and something I was very tempted or like really wanted to do is just move my cursor in the main menu, because like from watching the gameplay on the stream, like the cursor looked very like smooth in a way, like very fun to move around. So I moved my cursor around in the main menu, and I remember thinking like the cursor actually feels nicer than I expected it to feel. So um yeah, that was a thought that I had, and then I was like, okay, sleep time. I'm gonna play this game later.
So
Um,
that was back
yep.
when in 20
Oh, so this was May 2014.
May of 2014. I see. So at that time, I mean, obviously, you didn't know about leaderboards or anything like that. I think it was probably back when
So
Cookie
yeah,
was banned.
PPV2, yeah, he was banned, and then PPV2 was a thing, and um, I think it was like sort of end of Ruruchi era of being active, or like it was like the sort of last Ruruchi days. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you started playing the game, how did you? Because back when I started playing, and this is a very, very embarrassing story, admittedly, but I don't know what was going on with my internet connection. For some reason, I couldn't figure out how to download bitmaps. So I thought the only logic process was to download bitmap packs. So what I ended up
Oh.
doing is I downloaded the first bitmap pack because I thought I had to go in
Uh-oh.
order. So I
Uh-oh.
just downloaded a bunch of 2009 maps and I started playing Osu like that, which is a blessing because I mean that definitely gave me some very good reading bases, which
Oh
I
yeah,
still
yeah.
hold to this day. But I was, I was just wondering after reaching a certain level, are those really what beeped maps look like? Because they are very strange. Some timings are very odd. And then when I found out about CS4 AR9, I was like, what the hell? This is too fast.
Well, like more modern maps, you just weren't used to it.
Yeah, it
Like
definitely wasn't.
interesting. Yeah.
But back when I started playing those maps, I thought, wait, I can probably improve, and that's kind of when I realized, maybe I'm kind of good at this game. But that was probably when, because I started playing with mouse, as I'm pretty sure almost everyone does, unless you are different in that regard. And then I got my very first tablet, and it's all history from there, really.
What year did you start playing?
I started playing with mouse.
Oh,
Uh,
what year? What year?
Oh, what year? I think it was 2015 when
Okay.
I think I created my account in 2014 and then I was playing Team Fortress 2, so I didn't really care about Osu. And then, I eventually quit TF2 and synced all my time into Osu. So officially, I'd say I started in 2015.
Okay, I see. Yeah. For me, like I'm I think the kind of person who when I'm getting into a game, I like to have like beginner guides to sort of get me on the right track. And I like looking into like some stuff on the wiki. Like I know I looked through the playstyles section of the wiki early when I started playing, just to sort of like see what stuff was out there. Um, so I read the section on playstyles, and I was reading the one for mouse only, and it said players who achieve a high skill level with mouse only are very well regarded by the community. And I
Oh
was like, wow,
no.
I want to be very well regarded by the community. So I was like, I'm gonna play mouse only, and it didn't take long until like, um, so what happened was I watched this Wobbleful video where pretty soon after I started playing, I don't remember if I like Googled Osu videos or what happened, but I watched the Impossible Osu Song video by Wolf, and he had this like little intro where basically at the end of the intro before he played the map, he like pulled his tablet from like across his desk into like the position that it usually is. But like in that moment, I was like, tablets can be like used to play Osu. Like that's just what it looks like. It just works. And then like I watched him play with it, and he was just playing, and I was like, that's so crazy. So um, I had somewhat shown interest in getting a drawing tablet to experiment with like getting into drawing. Never happened, well, but it is something that I had thought about, and also something that I had like mentioned to my parents, like even before I found Osu. I was like, what if I get a drawing tablet? And they're like, okay, maybe. But then it didn't actually happen. So um, once I found that you can play Osu with a drawing tablet, I was like, oh, awesome. I was thinking of getting a drawing tablet anyway. So I went to my parents and I was like, hey guys, remember when I said I wanted a drawing tablet for drawing? And they're like, yeah, yeah, sure.
Oh
And
yeah, can I have a tablet for drawing? Actually plays
yep,
Osu. Yeah.
like a boss.
Yes.
Let's go.
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking of. That's pretty
It's
funny.
funny.
So, when you started playing, 'cause, when I got my first tablet, I just naturally found it easier to hover rather than dragging.
Oh,
Do you think that because I also found it very easy to use a small area rather than a large area, and I always think about this in the back of my mind. Like, what if I started playing Osu with a large area? What would be different these days? But I'm pretty sure it's just a subjective thing. It's all about comfort, really. How was it like for
yeah.
you?
So for me, I started playing hovering. I don't even think I really considered like I didn't have this sort of knowledge of like is hovering better, is dragging better, how big should my area be? Let me copy White Cat's or not White Cat at the time, but like copy Wobbleful's area and like when I started playing, I was very like within my own circle. Like I had two friends from school who I played games with, and they also like I kind of started playing Osu with them, and it was very like, I don't know, sort of like in my own world. But yeah, I started playing with tablet, and I did mention this during the blanket podcast. But like when I started playing this game, basically, like I didn't have space on my desk for my tablet and my keyboard and my monitor. Um,
Hmm.
like I didn't have space on the sides because basically, like I shared this long table with my brother, and so like we sat, like I sat on like the short end of one side, and then he sat on the other side. So I basically had like a square desk with like, yeah, it was like a very small space, and like my keyboard was basically the entire length of like my desk space. So I didn't really have room to put my tablet on the side. So when I started play, I also didn't have space to like, I didn't have space to put it anywhere. So what I did is
Yeah.
I put my tablet on my lap, and I
Oh God.
like just on my legs, and I was just hovering. And this was a temporary, like I knew at the time that this would be a temporary solution, and like over time I'd figure something out. But this is back when I was still playing like 2-star maps, and I was like, okay, I know that like you can use two buttons for this game, but like these maps right now that I'm playing, like they don't really require two buttons. So for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my tapping key to spacebar. And so I had my tablet on my lap,
Oh my
and
God.
my only tapping key was spacebar, and I was just playing these 2-star maps.
Oh my
um,
goodness, that's insane. So,
yeah.
tablet on your lap, spacebar, single tap.
Yep.
My God, that's the future meta right there. Jesus.
Yep. I was like FG Sky.
Yeah, and so you eventually transitioned into. Also, I'm assuming that wasn't a mechanical keyboard at the time, because when
Oh
you're not
no.
into OSU, you don't fall into that pit yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just some random keyboard that probably was found in my garage or something. I don't know.
See, that's very interesting. So, just like me, I started playing some very unconventional maps and then eventually found out what OSU was. And you started playing like a madman and eventually found out what a desk was. So you could have proper
Um,
posture and all of that.
well, yeah, I mean, eventually I discovered that like I can push my monitor back and I push my keyboard back, and then I have space on my desk to put my tablet like sort of under my keyboard. And so I did that, and so I'm left-handed, so my tablet was like under the like letters, and then I put my right hand on the number pad. So that's how I play
I
nowadays.
see.
Even nowadays, yeah. So that's how I got that play style.
So, when exactly did you decide to become a bit of a tournament player? Because, these days there's a very clear distinction between people who want to farm PP and people who focus mostly on skills. But I think at the
Mhm.
time it wasn't really that common. It was kind of unheard of because there weren't that many tournaments in the first place compared to these
Yeah,
days.
that's true. Like back then when I started playing tournaments, it was 2016, and the tournament community was definitely a lot smaller, a lot less established and developed like it is today. And so when I started playing Osu, so like I've already mentioned that I was kind of into League before, but I never really followed the tournament scene. I just kind of played normal games with my friends, and I never really followed tournaments. And same with Osu, like I had heard about like the World Cup grand finals in 2015, where it was like, oh, everyone's going, because I had like a little group chat of Osu players, and they were watching the grand finals, and everyone was like USA, USA, so crazy, and I like didn't really know what was going on. I was just like, someone's winning, someone like, good job guys, good job, America. But I was like really not into tournaments at all. I didn't really understand them. I didn't have much interest in them. And so in that same group chat, it was like a lot of USA players that were like pretty much all higher ranked than me. Like at the time I was um like rank 3000, but there was a lot of like higher rank USA players in that. It was a Skype group, Skype
Yeah.
group chat. Yep. And so this tournament came out called United States Cup, where you play for your state. And one of my friends who's also from Florida, who's in that's my state, where um, like he was higher ranked than me, and he was like, "Hey, Habib, we should play on the Florida team together." And I was like, "Yeah, right, man. I'm ranked 3000. I'd never make the team." So
Oh
he was like,
man.
he
That's
was
not
like,
gonna
"No."
age well.
Yeah, but he was like, "No, man, sign up, sign up." And I was like, "Okay." So I signed up, and I ended up on this team of 6 players. And I won't get into the details, but that tournament ended up getting canceled after like one round
Oh,
because, yeah, management fell apart. But we played. Oh yeah, well, I skipped the part where I said that I ended up getting on the team, but I guess that's kind of self-explanatory.
yeah, of course.
Um, so I was on the team. So it was like I was ranked 3,000. There was another player ranked 3,000, and then everyone else was like 1K or 3 digit or something. And um,
Were
do
there
you know?
were there players that are still active today? Can you remember
Yeah.
some of those names?
Um, well, do you know Half Slashed, like Mapper?
Yes.
And so I met. We were on the same team. He was also ranked 3,000, and I was ranked 3,000, and he was much more into the um tournament scene at the time than I was. But we played together. We played like one stage together, and I guess some practice lobbies. And he apparently, supposedly, um, he like took note of my performance. He was like, "Wow, this guy's not that bad," and so he invited me to play this rank rank restricted tournament, this 4 digit tournament with him. Um, and like I had never played like a full tournament other than that one round that got canceled. So I was like, "Okay, Mr. Half Slash, I'll play your tournament with you on your tournament team." And that tournament we ended up getting fourth place. Um,
Oh, that's not too bad considering it
yeah,
was your first experience.
Yeah, not bad. And like actually the team that got us knocked out had the same player who asked me to play the United States Cup in that Skype group chat, the one who's also from Florida. He was on the other team and we ended up losing to them. So that was interesting.
Oh, that's
Um
kind of funny looking back at those things, you know?
yeah, like
Especially after
little small
you
things.
have such a long-lasting legacy now in the tournament community.
Yeah. So the big thing is that okay, so like after that I still was like, okay, tournaments are okay. Um But another player from that first United States Cup team, his name is Num 5119. I think he ended up getting like 2 digit or something like later on. So
Hmm.
you might recognize his name. Um, but he invited me to play another 4 digit tournament called Z Tournament, which is not really around anymore, but it was pretty big at the time. Um, and I was like, okay, yep, sure, tournaments, I'll play with you. And so we played that tournament, and that team was like, like way too good.
Do you mean
I don't know
your
if you.
team or whoever you were facing?
Oh, yeah, our team, like the one that he invited me to. I don't know if you remember Beezer or I think Ming was Ming. I think you know Ming.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah, he was on that team, and then like I got thrown on that team, and like it was like pretty well developed. And the Discord server that we had for our team, like we ended up winning. I think. Oh, the first tournament we signed up for as that team was also canceled, so we had to find another one.
Oh my goodness,
And then
it's
yeah,
cursed.
yeah, the first tournament we ended up signing up for, or we ended up actually playing with Z tournament, and so I think we ended up winning that tournament. I mean, a lot of people on that team had much more experience than me, but I think I was holding my own. I was probably holding my own. I was doing okay. Um, but that was during summer of 2016, and I think like I played one or two more tournaments that were I was like rank 1,000 at the time, so all like rank 1K tournaments, and um, this story basically like leads up to um when I like played my first badge tournament and like
Oh,
what
because all
exactly.
of these tournaments you're mentioning, they aren't actually badged, or at least they
Oh,
weren't
no,
back
no,
in the
no.
day.
Yeah, so if you guys like maybe aren't aware, the tournament scene back then, like since it was not very established, there weren't many tournaments that gave community badges. It was like OWC, and then it was like these like big annual events, like regional events, maybe like the big North American 1v1 tournament that was badged.
Yeah,
Um,
I think also the Japanese country tournaments, things like that, they were badged as well.
yeah, yeah. But like rink restricted tournaments were just for fun, like maybe supporter prizes, something like that. But like no, like badges weren't like really a thing. Um, but one day, one fateful day, I was in Discord voice with like that team where I played Z tournament in the summer. This was like 3 months later, and I was just hanging out there one day, and they started talking about the next Z tournament that was coming out, and I was like, "Oh wow, next Z tournament!" Although, like at the time, I was trying to focus more on school than OSU, so um, I wasn't, yeah, I wasn't like in tournaments at the time. Like, I wasn't in any tournaments, and I wasn't completely like expecting to be playing more tournaments during school, but um
Yeah,
they were talking about the
luckily,
tournament.
they are usually held during weekends, so
Yeah,
at the
that's
very least,
true.
in that regard, you can kind of get away with it to some extent.
Yeah. So they were like, guys, next Z tournament, profile badge prize? Hello? Question mark? Like we won the last one. Like let's play again. Let's like make a team for this. And long story short, I ended up playing and we ended up winning. So honestly that still I think is the badge that I worked the hardest for. Um like practiced the most for, like thought the most about, and like I think worked hardest to end up finally winning. Um
So that was your first badge ever, Z tournament.
yeah, yeah, Z tournament, and um yeah, it was like rank 1K to 10K. And so the thing about rank ranges at the time was I think nowadays after the tournament starts, then like you can rank up or like decay past out of the rank range. But at the time, while you were in the tournament, you couldn't rank up past like 1K, for
Oh,
example.
wow. That's
Yeah.
very strange.
So um these tournaments that I played in the summer, the 1K tournaments, like you couldn't, or like if you ranked up past 1K, like you couldn't play in the matches. Um so for the badged Z tournament that I played, they had this system where like every stage you could go 50 ranks higher. So like 950, 900, 850, like each stage you could keep ranking up higher, but like by the time I started playing by the time Z tournament winter, it was called Z tournament winter, like the one that was badged.
Yeah.
By the time that came around, I had basically already fallen more in favor of like I kind of enjoyed playing tournaments more than like playing the same songs over and over in solo, and like just like for certain scores. Like it was just much more rewarding for me to play tournaments. So like initially like these tournaments were keeping me from ranking up into 3 digit, but like over time I realized that like if I want to keep playing tournaments, then like I have no reason to rank up. Like, and I sort of like started thinking a lot about like the PP system and like what it represents, and sort of like how just how misleading it can be. And so basically I was like, okay, I just want to play tournaments. So like if I want to be able to play open rink tournaments, then rank 1K is high enough. But if I go higher than 1K, then I can't play these 1K tournaments anymore. So I just want to play as many tournaments as I can. So I'm just gonna stay rank 1K and like just play everything. And that's pretty much what I did. And um then you know, as the story goes, it's like, who's this guy? He just keeps winning all these tournaments. And yeah, that was a good time. Yep.
That's very interesting because, I mean, obviously things are very different right now in the tournament scene, but at least back then, back in the day, you kind of ended up becoming the poster child for deranking and sandbagging and all of that.
Yeah,
And I
my
mean,
username became like a vocabulary word. It was like very strange.
yeah, having been in tournaments for a very long time, would you say that derankers are more of a modern issue in response to the PP system, or have those players always existed? Those that, I mean, it was a natural thing for you. You just got bored of the PP system, so you started just valuing skills over it. you just did it years and years before anyone else, or were there other players like that?
Yeah, there were definitely some players who like sort of rebelled against the PP system. Um, and like it like there were a couple players at the time, like top players, who would stream themselves, like OMG4s.
Yeah.
um he like he was like a very high ranking player back in like way back when, like 2015 or so. um and maybe even earlier, but anyway, he had like did these live streams where he would intentionally overwrite his scores with like lower PP scores and like lose rank and be like, ha ha ha, wow, PP system sucks, I'm like losing all this rank and like I'm not losing any skill. And um like he thought it was really funny. So yeah, there were definitely players. I mean, it definitely wasn't as prevalent. I think a lot of players' motivations to stay lower rank is to play tournaments in that rank range. At least nowadays. Um, so
So
yeah, it's yeah.
when you first started playing tournaments, did you have any kind of inspiration, some player that you looked up to in terms of tournament performance, and you wanted to emulate them?
Um, Good question, but like not really. I sort of like I said, I wasn't very involved in tournaments at all. Like I didn't even know how tournaments really worked until I just kind of played them on my own. And then eventually I was like, okay, this is like what double elimination means. This is like how bands work, how brackets work, like everything. And um I just kind of played like with the people that I was teamed with and just kind of had our own little fun. I mean, we actually did quite a lot of work strategizing and stuff like that, which I think developed really good habits for me early on with practicing. And I think that's probably what helped me a lot with um, like becoming better as a tournament player.
How do
But
you approach
yeah,
practicing a map pool exactly?
so for me, I um, look through it and okay, so this is assuming that like I'm really trying to practice for this tournament and not just like I'm relying on memory for of like the maps that I already know. But okay, so you play through every map once and you familiarize yourself with them, and then you go back to the ones that you think that if you played again, you would learn something new. And also like if you play it again, like you still need like you focus more on the maps that like you need to figure something out in order to get a better score. Or like let's say you're not very good with AR 10.3, so like the higher AR maps you have to play it a few times and learn it. But like nomod 1, consistency, aim for example, you can like probably just sight read it. Like you play it once, you get the idea, and at that point like you should play every map until the point where it's less about learning the map more and more about just playing it well in the match. Because like you reach a certain point where like playing it again isn't going to help you. Like it's not like solo where like whatever your highest local score is, like that's the score you're getting in the tournament. It's like practice is for the sake of figuring out how the maps go, and then from there you should focus your attention more on actually playing well in the match. Because you can stay up the night before the tournament to play each map 10 times. You wake up with like 1 hour of sleep, 2 hours of sleep the next day, and like you have no speed, you have no focus, like everything is horrible, and like you just get bottom score on like every map. And um like you reach a certain point where like you shouldn't be spending your time playing the maps more if you're not learning anything new.
So, what are your thoughts on people that decide to either play the map once or maybe even sight read it in tournament? Because, at least when it comes to sight reading, you don't really expect anything, so you end up actually reading the map for the very first time. And to some people, that's even better, but obviously, I can see why it can be very tricky for certain maps.
Yeah, I know Bubbleman mentioned that, and his case, and I kind of agree with this because I'm somewhat the same way, especially nowadays, that like as you play enough tournaments, you sort of like maps show up again and again in different tournaments. So sometimes you recognize a song that you've practiced before, or like you've heard the melody, or like you know what style of map that's going to be. And I do agree with like if you play a map too much, then like you'll start getting in your head. And it's very easy to fall into this trap of getting not necessarily getting mind block, but like not focusing on the map anymore. Um, Not reading the map for like truly what it is. And if you practice too much, then that can be an issue. And there's something that I did for a while, I think last year when practicing tournaments, is there were a couple of tournament matches where I decided I'm not going to play the map at all. I'm just going to look at every map in the editor, and I'm not going to play them at all. So I'm going to familiarize myself with them by watching them, but I'm not going to, because when you play the map, you develop this expectation of which patterns you hit and which patterns you didn't hit. And when you like, so when you play a map in solo, let's say like you sight read a map and you hit this very hard space stream, and then you play the map again in the match, and you're like, okay, this space stream, I have this expectation that like I was able to hit it in practice. But when you just look at the map in the editor, it's more like I know the space stream is here. um it sort of gives you time to look at the stream in the editor and like analyze how the shape goes, but you don't have an expectation of whether or not you're actually going to hit it. You just kind of play it based on what you know. And I think that's something that is kind of underrated. Like, I think I mostly just did it that way back then because like I was lazy and I didn't feel like practicing the map pool during the week. But
Yeah, especially when you
that's
are in a ton of tournaments
yeah,
to
that's
stack up.
besides the point. Yeah. But I found it pretty valuable and I didn't notice my performance dropping at all really. So um yeah, but for me, I think yeah, I think it makes sense that like especially if you know the song, or even if you just know the song, or even if you just know the type of map that it's gonna be, like you know the mapper and you know the artist name. Like sometimes that's all you need. Um and so like barking mad dog nomad 1, if you can play those
Exactly.
maps, if you can play it, you can play it. Like you already know you can play it or not. So it's like not really about practicing the map and getting local scores, to some people. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Like I know we've talked about how idke, for example. So idke, if you guys don't know, he has a history in drumline, which is like, playing drums for like band or whatever.
Oh, I
um
actually didn't know that.
yeah, and so sort of like drilled into his practice regimen, when you play drums, it's like when you think you're perfect, you're not perfect. Keep practicing. And like it's not about doing it right, it's about never getting it wrong. And so that's sort of drilled into idke's practice methods. So him practicing for OSU tournaments, it's like very much the same mindset. Like don't just try to get it right, try to never get it wrong. And like you FC a map twice, like your first two scores are FC, like play it again, FC it 3 times, 4 times, like make sure like you never fail. And yeah, it has like this very strong mindset about that. And like Bubbleman mentioned, it has this mindset of like being able to take the map for what it is every single time. So yeah, if you're able to do that, I think it's very valuable. Obviously, like, you saw his OWC performance back in 2019.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
Yeah, it really pays off if you're able to have that mindset and just be hard focused on practicing. And yeah, but for the
So,
most part, like Vaxei, for example, so in the USA
yeah, you know what's
OWC,
funny? I was gonna bring up Vaxei because I don't think
yeah,
he practiced nearly as much, but he can perform on a similar level.
so it's very interesting because in the OWC team server, Vaxei and idke had this conversation talking about like how much you should practice. And Vaxei is like pretty much polar. Like you think, USA team, Vaxei idke, like what do they do similarly? Like they must be doing something right to practice. But in reality, Vaxei is very like just know the map, and like however you play in the tournament match is like up to however you're feeling that day. And then idke is the complete opposite. Like it's like a part-time job practicing a map pool every single day, maybe like 2-3 hours. Like you just grind it out, you learn every map. And completely polar opposite practice methods that end up with like similar degrees of like very high performance and high consistency. And they had this conversation where they basically they just came to the conclusion that both of their practice methods were different and that both of them were also okay. And I think that was yeah, very interesting. Interesting.
That's a very good take right there, to not really take maple practice that seriously where you have to grind it. I mean, I guess it also depends on your level of, obviously base skill set, because if you are very good
Yeah.
like Vaxei, obviously you're not gonna have that many issues. Not saying that idke doesn't have a nuts skill set, of course, but I guess it's just a matter of method, as you said, but also
Yeah.
mindset, because me personally, when it comes to practicing mappools, I can't really do it every day because I hate like wasting time like that.
Hmm.
Like playing the same maps, it gets extremely boring. In fact,
Yeah.
sometimes I even get bored of tournament. Like, when you signed up to more tournaments and you see the same song mapped three different ways, you kind of get
Yeah.
bored of it. And I'm just like, can we ban Nomod 3 because I don't like the song?
Yeah, yeah, that's something that bothers me. Like I don't like when I make map pools, I don't believe in picking songs that are not good. Like I really prioritize the maps actually being fun. Like I don't want players to have this problem where they don't want to play a map just because they don't like the song. Like I think that's bad map pooling.
Yeah. So, speaking of map pooling, other than actually participating in tournaments as a player, you also have some experience as a tournament host and a
Yeah.
tournament map pooler as well. So,
Yep.
what would you say is one of the best things you can do in order to run a successful tournament as an host?
Um, you should, I think, establish a clear rule set and um I don't know. That's like the first thing that came to mind. But um, basically, like stay on top of things and have clear communication with the players on how things are going, like what's coming up next in the tournament. Um, Having more experienced staff members to help you out. It can be hard to recruit experienced staff members because they're always, so busy with their own tournaments. But if you're able to reach out a bit and like sort of network with other staff members. And I think the best way to do that is like if you want to host a tournament, I think you should start out as just a staff member. Like maybe just volunteer to referee for like a random tournament and like be diligent and like learn like the right way to do things or like the not proper necessarily, but like learn the way that things go and like how tournaments are really run, and that'll give you a good experience to host your own tournament. And you will have met other staff members by doing that, and you can hopefully recruit a small staff team to start your first tournament. Or depending on how involved you get, you can recruit this like crazy, like high production value sort of staff team for your first tournament. Like it really depends on how much you involve yourself. But yeah, I think stay on top of things for one and have a clear rule set, but also you should get into staffing yourself before you try hosting something.
I see. So, I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but did you ever work on in the actual OWC stuff?
Yeah, in 2020, I did work as a map pool playtester. So all the maps were pretty much custom made, aside from like a couple, but they were all custom made. And since I didn't play OWC that year, I was invited to be a playtester, and um, it was it was a really unique experience because like it took me a while
Just
to get
wanting to
used to
say,
the
Pop.
idea that like if there's like something preventing the map from being the right difficulty, like you can just change it. And it's not just about changing the patterns. Like you can change the AR, the CS, even the OD. You can change everything, and like you can like make the song shorter. You can like intentionally not map the whole thing, so that it's not like 5 minutes long. And stuff like that. Like it took me a while to get used to that, but I think that's exactly what makes custom mapping so valuable. Um, and I think that's why part of the reason why OWC map pools in 2020 and Corsairs 2020 as well were very, very successful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, asking because obviously I did do some map pooling in my time. Obviously, not for high level tournaments or anything, just for local Italian tournaments. But
Mhm.
I think it's a very interesting concept to kind of have that game knowledge, because some map poolers they don't really know all that well about the implications of a different skill sets for different maps. Like you'll have absurd maps paired with
Yeah.
very easy maps, and maybe they pick
Yeah.
certain reading maps just because they are AR7, while in reality the actual start difficulty is like, 3 stars and whatever.
Yep.
What would I mean, considering that you are obviously a very good player with a very deep knowledge, you have also recently made a map pooling video on your channel.
Oh yeah.
What is the your process for making a map pool usually?
So usually if I know that I'm gonna be map pooling for a tournament, as I go through my play sessions, like if I pass by a map that I'm like, that would be pretty cool for a tournament, I would just put it in a collection, and then over time I get like a couple maps in that collection so that once I start working on the map pool, so I sort by difficulty, and I basically do every map pool at once. Um, I don't sort of go like, okay, group stage or like qualifiers, just only do the qualifiers pool, and then round of 32, just only do the round of 32 pool and finish it. I set up like every round's like pool sheet at once, and I go through this collection, um, and I just like go to each map one by one and like, okay, which round would this be good for, and like what mod can I put on this map? Um, so I end up pulling the double time maps first because like I'm looking at this collection sorted by difficulty, and so the double time maps are all like the lowest star rating, because you're putting DT on them. So I end up doing the DT pools first, and then from there it gives me a sort of baseline difficulty that I can balance the rest of the picks around. Like, okay, round of 32, I had like a 6 star DT1. Um, and so let's like have the rest of the pool be around that difficulty. Pretty much like that. And I just like go through this collection and like pick out maps, and then whatever map slots are empty, after that, I focus on them one by one.
I see. I mean that seems like a very optimal way to do things. But I don't know if, like, I don't know. It's always very interesting to hear how other people run tournaments, because I think you could always learn something new. Did you ever
Yeah.
compare your way of map pooling to, let's say, somebody else who was hosting another tournament?
So, I mean, back when I started map pooling, it was always on map pooling teams. Um, Nowadays I found that like I think I map pool better when I'm making everything, because I'm more aware of the picks and like why I pick certain things and like small details about the maps that you need to balance around. Um, but I've like worked with map poolers in the past that they have this very objective view of map pools, and they didn't really pay any regard to, like, they cared about, like, really all they cared about was the map testing a skill. And they didn't care about how fun that map might be for the players, or like the song choice sometimes, or like map quality. It was really just about like, does this map test like tech or like small circles? And it was like, or like gimmick, especially the gimmick maps were like, sure, this is a gimmicky map, but like nobody wants to play this map, like don't put it in the map pool. And
Ah,
like
yes, the
having worked
tech
with
picks, man.
like having worked with mapplers like that, it's like, I yeah, in case you're wondering, don't map pool like that. I think um the number one priority should be like pick maps that players would want to play. And like I think sometimes a lot of map poolers are afraid to pick maps that, like, pick the same kinds of maps that they themselves would enjoy playing in like a typical OC session. um and like people are sometimes afraid of like those maps being like not balanced or something like that, or like not tournament friendly or whatever. But like if the map is fun and like the map tests a certain skill, and it's not like there's only one difficulty spike in the map, like it's at least somewhat balanced, like just, put it in the pool, like have fun with it, let the players have fun with it. And I think that'll just create a more memorable experience and more unique experience with map pools. I think a lot of like tournament players are sick and tired of seeing the same songs, and that's sort of part of the reason why custom mapping became a thing, is because like people like ran out of maps that they felt were like safe, viable tournament picks. And I think people need to be more creative with map pools. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there are certain tournaments that basically do the opposite. So tournaments that are created with the purpose of having a certain skill set over others.
Yeah.
For example, there's the old map tournaments. Recently, the Speed Cup is making a comeback too.
Oh yeah.
So, to a certain extent, there are people that just literally create another tournament just for that. And I guess that wasn't really a thing back in the day, because I don't even
No.
know if things were as established as they are now. Like, who decided that Nomod 1 was aim consistency or that Nomod 2 was always, I believe, the stream pick?
Yeah. It's kind of okay, so back map pooling in like 2017 or so, I think, yeah, that's when I started map pooling. And sometimes map pools would run into this issue where like the map poolers like forget to include a certain skill. And so the tournament Suji Spring Cup?
Yep.
When I was map pooling in 2018 and the first pool, the round of 32 map pool, um, I really liked the balance of it. And so but it wasn't really like structured. It just like happened to include everything. And so from then on, and this is like back when I would just focus on one pool at a time. Like nowadays, like I said, I do it differently, but we finished the run of 32 map pool. And so for the run of 16 map pool, I basically tried to copy like every style of map and sort of be like, okay, whatever map was in the first slot in round of 32, let's have the same kind of map, just a little harder in round of 16. And it wasn't like I wasn't like, okay, nomad 1 is going to be aim, nomad 2 is going to be streams. Um, I think the way that happens is that like when you think about like the skills that go into this game and like testing different like areas of the game, like you think of like what are the very broad categories of gameplay, and it's like there's aim, there's like tapping, and there's like reading. um I think like just sort of naturally like aim, okay, that's like a pretty basic thing, like let's just make it the first map, and then like very tapping heavy is nomad 2, so that would be streams. And um it's hard to explain exactly how like why it's this way, but like the first map of each mod pool is usually the one that's most aim focused, just because aim is sort of like I don't know, there's like something about it that like kind of puts it in the front of your mind when you think about the different skills. um
Yeah, if we want to know about the different skills, we all know we can go check out DigitalHypno's video on YouTube, am I right?
oh yeah, OCPHD guys, watch my video, subscribe to my channel. Shameless plug. So subscribe to Spaza too, but you guys are already subscribed, so don't need to remind you because
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting concept. The OSU PhD, I mean, treating OSU like some kind of science, or rather, almost as if something to study and kind of try to figure out what's the best path to fall into. Because what many people may not realize is that just because, we have this knowledge that we have as top players because we went through it, but maybe a newer player who's now approaching the game actually has no idea what reading is and all of these different aspects of the game, because they may perhaps be stuck, you know, just
yeah.
covering their eyes and looking at just one type of player.
Yeah. And I think what leads to that is, and I was talking to someone about this yesterday, but like when you improve in OSU for the most part, like within 1 or 2 days, you don't like see like, oh wow, I improved a lot. But like even after like 1 or 2 weeks, you sometimes don't feel like, okay, I'm like I just leveled up my aim. Like the skill level of my aim is now higher. Like wow, I'm better at aim. It's more like you compare your scores to your old self and you notice that like things are just kind of a little easier. But in your head, you don't really feel like, oh wow, I'm a better player now. Awesome. It's more of like, okay, this map is just like a little easier for me now, or like it's just not as hard as it used to be. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you feel like a better player. And so this cycle sometimes continues and continues until like in your head and this I think leads a lot of top players to like not realize how good they are at the game, and they're like, oh, I'm so bad, I missed on an 8-star map, I'm so bad.
Yeah, of
And
course.
yeah, but like that cycle sometimes leads top players to like not realize how much they've developed in the game and like how much they know, and like it's such a natural transition. Like gaining skill that you sometimes forget what it was like to be like a beginner in the game. Like it's not like school where like after 1 year you go to the next grade level and like you can look back and say like, okay, last year I was in like I don't know, like fourth grade, and then now I'm in fifth grade. Well, I mean that's what it is in America. I don't know how it's named for you guys, but here it's just like fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. Um, but like my point is that like yeah, it's such a smooth transition. People often forget like how much they've grown and how much they really know about the game, and like they take a lot of the information that they have for granted because it came to them like kind of out of nowhere. Like it like creeped up on them until like they had all this knowledge about the game without even really realizing.
Yeah. So if you go back in time, thinking about stuff like this improvement and whatnot, I remember back when your name first started popping up in forums, Reddit, and things like that.
Oh,
You were
yep.
known to be very much a perfectionist player, almost like Biko in a sense, because you had a ton of SS ranks, no A ranks. Some people were speculated you played offline. Was that true, first of all? And if so, do you think that being a perfectionist is a good or bad thing for your improvement?
Yeah, I did play offline, so I'm someone who's very like um I wouldn't say perfectionist or OCD, but like I like to have my profile stats be like very clean. And part of that involved like if I knew I could get a perfect score on a map, then like I wanted to like get a perfect score on that map. And small little story, when I started playing this game, I had this misconception that like your personal best on a map is the average of all of the scores you've ever submitted on that map. So like if you got a 96 FC and then you SS the map, then your personal best is 98%. Like that's what I thought
Oh
at
wow,
first. I don't know.
that's a very
Yeah.
interesting way to look at it.
I don't
Peppy,
know.
take notes. Coming in Lazer.
No, I think that's like because like obviously that's not true, but like when I first thought that I had discovered that, I like I was playing like 1 star maps, 2 star maps, and like all the top 50 is like 4 mod SS, and like I realized that, and then just look at the global rankings of all these like 4 mod SS plays, and I'm like this must have been like these guys' first ever submitted score on these maps. Like maybe I shouldn't submit a score on this map until I'm better at the game and I can like get a perfect score. Because like I knew at the time that like even though I was still learning the game and those maps were still somewhat hard for me, like as I improved, like those maps would be like really easy for me to get perfect scores on. And I didn't want to like taint my profile with like imperfect scores that I'd never be able to fix. So that like obviously I learned later on that that's not true, but it sort of led to me developing this habit of not submitting a score if I didn't want to keep it on my profile. So
I
um
see. And do you think
yeah.
that was limiting somehow, at least when it comes to pushing limits? Because obviously, if you're gonna be approaching something that's very hard for you, for example, speed, you are not gonna be able to get very good accuracy right off the bat. You kind of have to go through
Yeah.
the whole cycle of get B rank, maybe FC with B rank, and then eventually it turns into an A and then into an S, and then eventually you could even double S it.
Yeah. And I mean it's not like I never submitted non FC scores or non S ranks. Um like I did spend quite a lot of time because like in the same sense of like if I knew I could get a better score on a map, like the way I used to think is like if I know that I have the ability to beat my personal best, then like it's not really my personal best. Like I should go back and improve it and like make it more representative of my abilities. So I used to always go back through my old scores and like S ranks, especially on like 1 to 2 star maps, like random scores lying around that I never um fixed or SS'd at the time, like just go back and SS them. And like old B ranks maybe like turn them into A ranks and then A ranks turn them into S ranks. So just go back and always push your personal bests to be as good as they can be. Um, like so I did definitely play stuff that was out of my comfort zone, but like a lot of it also came down to playing unranked maps that challenged my skill where I could just like submit a score without feeling pressure to like need to fix that later on. And I still feel that pressure in a sense. Like I never submit scores on maps that are impossible to assess. like I would never submit a score on like May Day, for example, because you're basically forced to get a D rank and like you can never fix that. Um, so maps like those, like I like just will not set a score on, because it like goes against my profile morals of like being able to one day if I really wanted to and I really grinded it out, I could have like all perfect scores in theory, and that's like something that sort of keeps me um like submitting scores the way that I do.
Yeah, I
But
even saw today
yeah.
on Reddit you actually also do some very funky geometrical stuff with your play graph.
Wait,
There's
on
sort
Reddit?
of, yeah, on Reddit. If you go on Reddit right now on Also Game, there's people are pointing out that your play graph, I think, is basically mirrored, if I recall
Yep.
correctly, something like that. And you actually
Yeah, it
did
is.
this yourself by going manually with play count and stuff. There's kind of a bit of an aesthetic to your profile that I'm guessing you are trying to keep up in all aspects of it.
Wait, this has 2,000 upvotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Um, so the way it started is, so like where the mirror starts is like April 2018, and um so at the time I was like really into playing tournaments, and I played so instead of playing in single player, I would play in multiplayer lobbies by myself. And the reason I started doing that was for tournament practice, because like it was a lot easier to look up maps and like from like the mappool spreadsheet like in a multiplayer lobby, because you can use the multiplayer command to jump straight to the map, and so it was just faster for me to download maps that way. But then like I thought about it more, and especially so like for a player like me who only wants to submit a score if I don't miss, then in multiplayer, like in single player, when you use the sudden death mod, like you miss and you fail. And um in multiplayer, when you use the sudden death mod, you fail, but it doesn't end the map. Like you can still finish it and it won't submit. And that's basically like exactly what I wanted to have like as a player. Like obviously I don't want to like retry spam maps. Like I still want to play through them. But like if I want to go for a score, like I don't want to sort of, I guess like it was just like a safety net for me. Like if I ended up missing the last note, um then it wouldn't submit the score. And so at the time, I did my tournament practice in like Score V2, and I grinded for scores in multiplayer, usually with sudden death. And what ends up happening is that like when you're in solo, when you retry a map, um, like you gain play count, obviously. But in
Yeah.
multiplayer, you don't gain play count unless you finish the map and you passed. So the only way is like if you finish the map and you pass all the way through, then the score submits. And like so if you like leave the multiplayer lobby halfway, or if you fail at some point, the score won't submit. So you don't get play count. So there was that, and then there was tournament practice in Score V2, and then there was like actual tournament matches in Score V2. And on top of like all of that, I ended up having like less than 20 play count in a month. In like the start of 2018, I was playing so often. I had so many tournament matches. Like I think I had more tournament matches than I did play count that month. Like, and like some of those months, it's like kind of insane to think about. But
Has this been fixed since then? Like, do multiplayer counts now for play count?
oh no, yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Um, so it's yeah, it still works that way. I stopped playing that way because I think mostly because like I played that way for a few months, but I stopped doing that when I wanted to start mirroring my play count graph. So like back then is also when the new site came out with this graph. So like on the old website, this graph existed, but you couldn't see the exact number of play count. But like around this time is when the new site was becoming more relevant, and you could see the exact number of plays per like per month. And so I was looking at my graph, and it looked very strange that like it dropped down into inactivity. And so I got this idea that was like, what if I like because it looked kind of strange, and I was like, what is it gonna look like from now on? Like once they start maybe getting more play count again, like I feel like it's gonna look a little strange. So I got this idea. I was like, what if I make it look exactly like it looked like before? like I start just mirroring the graph, like and make it very symmetrical. Um, and I remember I messaged Apraxia right when I got this idea, and I like drafted out like um how much play count I needed to get in the next like few months. And I messaged Apraxia. I was like, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be so cool. And he's like, What are you doing? But yeah, I started doing it for fun, and like I just like stayed committed to it. I mean, like I guess I've pretty much had no reason to stop, I guess. So yeah, it's just kind of been for fun for me.
Yeah, and it
And
just adds
yep.
that more, and yet another thing that's more unique about your profile compared to most people.
Yeah, some people have asked me what am I gonna do after I finish mirroring, um, which I think it's gonna be around like in a year from now. Um, so still quite some time to go, but still. And I'm not really sure. I don't want to try sticking to a plan and like giving an answer when it's gonna end up being different, because I think by the time I get there, I'll decide what I want to do, because like maybe for now I feel super motivated and I'm just like, let's like keep like, because like one idea is like I can make a straight line of like the same number of play count, or like I could make like even numbers, or like a zigzag or something, like some crazy like start making shapes that sometimes requires like playing a lot of like really playing a lot, but like I don't know where I might be in a year from now, and so it's sort of hard to say. I don't want to give answers like, oh, I'm gonna do X thing after I mirror my play count, when like in a year from now I don't feel like doing that anymore. So um I don't really have any solid ideas, and I think it's just gonna come down to like when the time comes, like once the first month after the mirroring ends, like you'll know because you'll see it, and like whatever happens happens, I guess.
And then all of this intro, and then you're just gonna have 727 play count or something dumb like that.
Wait, that's actually a good idea. I'll think about it.
Oh no.
727. Like, what if I have like maybe let's say I'm very inactive come like that time, then I'll have like alternating 7-2 7-2 7-2.
Oh, that
That'd be
see that
that'd be
could be an
funny.
idea. That could definitely
That's
be an
funny.
idea.
It just depends on how it just depends on how active I am when the time comes.
So obviously you've told me some very interesting things here, but regarding you as a player, your way of playing, and even your mindset to some extent.
Mhm.
So on the flip side, what would you say is the worst thing about you as a player, and the best?
Um, Worst thing in a general sense.
Yeah, what you feel like is either limiting you, or maybe something about your playstyle that you think it could be improved on, like anything like that, basically.
Oh, so um, I think maybe more so back in like 2018, 2019. I think like a lot of people took me as like very, very well rounded. Like if you 1v1 me, like you don't know what to pick, that sort of thing. But I think like nowadays I feel more aware of the fact that like I think my tapping skill in general is like my most limiting factor, like stamina. And I think that's like some sort of like issue that I've had. And I guess like it's natural, but like it's something that only because like like your aim hand, your right hand has like better finger control almost, or like more finger independence than your tapping hand.
Yeah.
Um, and like in my actual tapping hand, well, I'm left-handed, so for me it's my right hand that I use for tapping, and I like have this issue where like when I'm running out of stamina, like my fingers start galloping, and I guess like that happens to most people, but like even when I'm not running out of stamina, sometimes like I'd end up like naturally the way I play streams is like I'm galloping, and like I had this issue where like I like it's like I'm trying to stream like one key after another, but like what ends up happening is like I press my index finger and then I press my middle finger and then I let go of my index and middle, and it's more like I mean it's very fast, but like my index finger basically gets like stuck down to the key, and it's sort of like led to this like bad habit of in my tapping style that recently I've been like actually trying to work on like working out of my muscle memory, because like it's been pretty frustrating for me. But like for example, um in my aim hand, if I try streaming on like a big key on my keyboard, like if I try streaming on the shift key, like I can stream pretty like whatever speed I can stream with that hand. Like I don't have an issue like with the shift key like lifting, um, like between each key press. But with my actual tapping hand, like the shift key is like very like like sort of stuck. Like it gets stuck like it doesn't lift up before I press my middle finger down, and like it like creates this very bad like galloping habit that I found has been like limiting my um accuracy on like longer maps, and especially like when I'm running out of stamina, it's hard for me to like push past my stamina limits without like just getting really bad accuracy. And like it um like especially on like space streams where I'm also running out of stamina, it's like almost impossible to play. So I think that's like probably like one of probably like my biggest weakness that I if I had to tell one right now. But it is something I've worked on, or like that I've been working on, sort of trying to work that out. And I think it's gotten better, but still I think like something that I've done for practice is like try learning how to stream on my shift key with my tapping hand. Because like if I'm able to stream on my shift key, then that means that I will like that will mean that I've gotten rid of that issue of like leaving my index finger pressed for too long. Um,
That's interesting. So, have you ever considered like changing switches and or things like that? Because I don't know
yeah,
what you're
so
using, but assuming you could use a heavier one, there would be a bit more bounce back whenever you do that.
yeah, so I have red switches mostly, Cherry MX Reds, and then I have a hot swap keyboard that has black switches, and then I also have like some brown switches installed in it. So I have basically I've played with reds and browns and blacks. I've tried blues, I've tried speeds, and but like I've never had them. I mean they're all okay, um, but I think and also like I have a laptop, so sometimes I use like a not to play OSU, but like for typing, I have like this scissor switch, like
Yeah,
laptop
yeah, of
keyboard.
course.
But like no matter what switch, like the same sort of like galloping problem, like it's in my fingers themselves. It's not in the keyboard, and I guess that's like something I can just bring up briefly. Like your skill is within you, and like your peripherals is just like the way that you express it. It's kind of like your handwriting in a way, or I guess more like your pen grip. Um, that like it's more about like what makes you most comfortable. Like some people like grip with like three fingers, some people grip with four. Um, and like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's all. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you don't have to copy someone else's grip to improve at aim or anything like that. I
yeah.
mean, I definitely agree with what you said in that regard because I've always been the type of guy to kind of tap very hard on my keyboard. So I naturally got used to black switches being a lot better for me and a lot more comfortable compared
Oh,
to
I
very
see.
lighter switches. Though
Interesting.
even
Is I'm just wondering like if there's a specific reason.
yeah,
Like
because
other than that, like when you play with lighter switches, like what exactly makes you feel like I don't like this?
well, okay, so in the beginning I had red switches, so I kind of got
Yep.
used to them. But then as soon as I tried black switches, they just felt a lot more comfortable because sometimes I will just end up finger locking, especially on low BPM.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh yeah.
it's not because I was tapping hard, because I recognize that when it comes to low BPM, you have to learn how to type lightly, especially
Yeah.
for streams and things like that, long streams or even speed exactly to some
Yeah.
extent. And when I did that with red switches, I had some trouble doing that. And I would end up finger locking and perhaps even galloping, as you yourself said,
Yeah.
where you basically lose your finger control, and then it's almost as if instead of streaming, you go from streaming to just do a lot of doubles in a row, because
Yeah.
you kind of lose that feeling, that consistency, and however you may call it, and that doesn't really happen all that much to me when it comes to black switches, especially on
Oh,
that
okay.
certain given BPM. So I
That's
just thought
good.
it was a bit more natural.
Yeah. A general note that something that I've noticed is that like for me, I think like what causes the galloping um is in a sense because like I single tap with my index finger, and like I'm naturally more comfortable starting patterns with my index finger. Um, And so I think like basically like my middle finger is a lot weaker. So like if I train my ability to start patterns with my other finger and like make it just as comfortable, then both of my fingers are like sort of more independent of each other because um it's kind of like the meme that's like don't talk to me or my son ever again, or it's like one image
Yes.
and then like a smaller one of the same thing. It's like the smaller one is like my middle finger, and then like the bigger one is my index finger. That's like kind of what it feels like sometimes, but like trying to get my middle finger to grow up and like not be so like little and like you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
So
find that to be extremely relatable. That's also a problem I have when it comes to dev streams. Because, I always feel like my index is just more used to that, so my middle finger can't quite be on the same level.
yeah,
And I found that if I start full alternating, because luckily I do have, like, I have practiced that skill set for a very long time, so I can full alternate decently.
uh-huh.
Um, like, if I do that, I can somehow hit patterns with no problems, even like, very finger control heavy stuff. But if I try
Yeah,
to do it in what I considered uh, the most comfortable way originally, which will be single tapping with your index finger and starting patterns with your index finger, I
yeah.
end up finger locking more, strangely
Oh,
enough.
interesting.
So I think using the Bubbleman method of absolute finger control would most likely help you a lot, but it
Yeah,
really is a lot of work.
yeah, and like, I know Fancy Lad because he also pretty much full alternates, and he said that like once you learn how to full alternate, like there's really no reason to like not play that way, and also like very complex rhythms will feel less complex, I guess, because it's more just about like, and I know Bubbleman has worded it this way, but it's really just about speeding up and slowing down your fingers, rather than like playing complex rhythms. It's just like you're like doing the same motion with your fingers, just at like a higher or lower speed, and yeah, that's kind of how full alternating feels. But to me, like the way I see full alternating, it's sort of like a combination of single tapping with your with one finger and then also single tapping with the other finger. Um, and then like full alternating sort of like puts that together in a like continuous back and forth. Um, so for me, I found that like when I full alternate, or it used to be worse in the past, but like if I had to start a pattern with my middle finger, like my accuracy would drop because it's just not as comfortable for me. Like even though I could full alternate, um, I I found that like, and if I tried single tapping with just my middle finger and starting everything with my middle finger, it would be even worse than full alternating, even though I was a single tap player naturally. So that was something, and like it again ties into like your middle finger, like your non-dominant finger sort of being weaker, and like being able to bring it up to speed and have both fingers sort of at the same comfort level and independence and sort of being able to tap on their own, um, fixes a lot of issues with like maybe running into like roadblocks with your stamina, um, running into like finger control issues, like sometimes like even accuracy issues, especially when you're running out of stamina. But like a lot of things, and like finger lock especially is another thing that like um you have less control over your weaker finger when you're running out of stamina, and like I think that's mostly what causes it to freeze up sometimes. Like I don't know if you ever notice like when you finger lock, like if it's a specific finger that finger locks or if it could be either one. But I know I've talked to Aryu about this, and he said that every like so he single taps with his index, and every time he finger locks, it's like, yeah, I don't want to get this wrong because I don't remember which finger he said, but there was one finger where he said that like every time he finger locks, it's always the same finger. So yeah,
That's
I don't know if you
interesting. I actually
experienced that.
never analyzed whenever I finger lock, because I always assume it's just a finger control issue.
Yeah,
And whenever that happens, I just go back to playing fucking 140 BPM dev stream, and after a while, I'm just
yeah,
fine.
yeah. Like I never really thought about it either. Like which finger locks more? Yeah, I never thought about it until he brought that up because like I was talking to him about the whole like like removing the galloping from my tapping style, um, and he mentioned that, and like I think for me like usually when I finger lock, it's my middle finger that doesn't go down enough, so like my non-dominant finger. Um, yeah, very interesting, but it's definitely, yeah, I would consider that my weakest. like part of my or my gameplay, and like something that I've been wanting to work on the most. And something like in that regard, like I don't know if you've seen that I made a video called the flamingo method, where
Yeah, I
like
did.
it yeah, it's basically this map set of like it's like a practice pack for bursts, like the same burst over and over again, and like it's very slow, like 110 BPM. And the point with it is I used it to train like getting my middle finger comfortable with starting patterns and starting bursts. Um, and so yeah, I used that map set to sort of get my middle finger more up to speed. So I highly recommend it. I think it's like I've tried a bunch of different methods, and I think that like works the best for isolating that skill. So yep,
Sometimes I also
watch my YouTube
think,
videos, lol.
oh yes, yes, of course, man, of course. Sometimes I also think that finger locks may stem from a bit of a reading problem because sometimes, if
Yeah,
I'm not reading the stream properly, I can't just force my tapping hand to go along with it. I'm most likely gonna finger lock or just mess up my accuracy. But if I do a bit of reading practice, then I go back to those streams and they seem a lot easier. Then it just seems like reading is like 80% of my gameplay. So if I read the stream properly, my fingers just naturally follow, and I don't
yeah,
even feel the difference between middle and index anymore. It's kind of strange. I'm trying to figure this out because I've always been more uh, towards jumps, though I used to be an HDHR jump player, or consistency like United and things like that. Then I kind of
yeah.
transitioned more into DT jumps, and now I'm trying to figure out depth streams. And it's definitely been a process, but I think reading the depth stream is basically like more than half of the work, because if I can't read the stream properly, and this is where combo colors may also come into play here, then we can talk about
Yeah.
that. If I can't read the spaced stream, even if my fingers can keep up, it becomes very messy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it's very hard sometimes to know what is causing you to mess up a pattern. And that sometimes leads people to like trying to train the same thing over and over again to get better at a certain skill, when in reality it's like a completely different skill that's actually preventing them from playing that stuff. But yeah, I think if you're not comfortable reading a pattern, then like when it comes up, you sometimes your brain freezes and like you don't actually know how to tap it properly, and so as a result, then you finger lock. And especially
Yeah.
like maybe on higher BPM or higher AR, you might finger lock more often because like you just didn't have enough time to process like how much you needed to tap your fingers. So yeah, I definitely agree.
So, other than that was kind of the worst thing according to you. What's your best skill in your opinion?
Um, I think having like spent so much of my time like going back through old scores to improve accuracy, I think I've like become a very like I've like dedicated myself to getting the best accuracy I can, and so I think as a result, I'd if I had to list a skill of mine that's probably like above average more than anything else, is probably tapping accuracy. Um, just because it's like, but like I don't know, it's kind of strange because like sometimes like in my sight reads or something, I might get like the same accuracy as like everyone else on the leaderboard. But like I think accuracy is like a very like it's a dedication skill. And um like you have to really dedicate time sometimes to learning the map and learning the rhythms and figuring out exactly what you're doing wrong, and like fleshing out all of the 100s out of your gameplay until you assess the map. And sometimes I assume that like more people have better accuracy within them, and they're just kind of too lazy to actually learn the map and get like push for even higher accuracy. Um, but like personally, like I never really liked settling for accuracy if it wasn't like if I knew I could get a perfect score, like SS, then like I would keep trying the map and like flesh out all the little imperfections in my accuracy until I assessed. So um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's one of the positive things about being a perfectionist, if so to speak, meaning,
yeah,
going for double S more than anything. You just
yeah,
get
and
used
like
to it, and, at the end of the day, you're gonna be getting high accuracy regardless.
yeah, yeah, and like I wouldn't consider myself as like as having the best unstable rate either. Like there are a lot of players that like can get 50, like in the 50s UR pretty consistently on like basic maps. Um, but I would say that like I'm definitely like more above average than my other skills in like more like technical accuracy. Especially on like maybe like nomod tech maps or like complex rhythm sort of stuff. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
like
I
anything that's
definitely.
within my skill range.
Yeah, I also saw. I saw that even on slightly higher BPMs, I believe you were the first one to get 99 on Cranky the 5 with double time.
Oh, I think that score is like 99 or 98 or something. But
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
pretty wild map. I can't remember the BPM exactly. I don't think it's super high, but I think it's something like 230 BPM doubles with bursts and
yeah.
wacky sliders. It's
I
not
think
really
that's a,
that
yeah.
easy.
That's a good example actually because like obviously like my first scores I wasn't getting that accuracy and like even my first FC like wasn't that high accuracy but like I think a lot of people once they FC a map they're okay with it and like whatever accuracy they got like they settle. They just sort of like they're like okay, I got the FC. But like as for me it's more like I know I can do better than this so like I'm going to keep trying like some of the 100s that I got felt very preventable. So I'm just going to try this map again and like sort of work those out until I feel like I've gotten a score that I'm very comfortable with. And like I feel like all of my S ranks, if I like really wanted to, like I said, like in theory I can SS them. So like if I ever wanted to dedicate myself to like improving accuracy on something, like you can always go back and like when you have a 1x100 score, like that's pretty good accuracy, but like that 1/100, like if you just like try the map again and like just don't make that one mistake and then do everything else the same. Like it's like very small improvements to your score that like you have to dedicate time to. And like I think a lot of people just don't have the dedication for that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you don't have to be like a perfect, SS only player. But yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind if you want to go for high accuracy plays, is that like it does take time to learn the map. And like just because like the best scores in this game weren't sight reads. I think that I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. You know what's funny? This thing you just said actually brings me a bit of pain because I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but the other day I kind of, I made a tweet complaining a bit about Lazer scoring because, as you know, as I'm pretty sure you saw, because I definitely saw you, I am
Uh-huh.
currently in the process of playing Spotlights. I was looking at
Oh,
them and trying to figure out how they work exactly.
uh-huh.
And so, I've been assessing most of the maps, even though it's not really necessary because early stages, you don't really have to assess everything to get the badge. Let's be reasonable here. But
True.
on playlist C, my big problem, and I knew this was going to be a big problem, was Gaucho because I
Uh-huh.
always had a mind block on that map. And doing
Oh,
it on Laser, where sliders are a bit more tedious, definitely give me
yeah.
some problems, right? So I
Yep.
was tryharding that on stream for like maybe 1 hour, which is pretty wild because I never really retry maps all that much. And I ended
Yeah.
up with a score that was literally a double S, and the 100 I got was a slider break,
Oh,
like before the last 200 combo or so. And when I I in normal circumstances I would have been super happy with that score because, as I said, on Bencho on the actual client I
yeah.
can't even get like a good 98% run because I'm literally mind blocked as hell. But
Oh,
on
wow.
Laser, that run was so incredibly blessed. Like it was absolutely insane. So if I were to get that run in any other context, I'd be super happy with a one slider break 100. But in that context, I was just like, I I really just lost 200k points because of one slider, and so I kept
Oh,
retrying. And unfortunately, I didn't get it because I was super mind
yeah.
blocked. But you know, that's the kind
Yeah.
of thing I was complaining about, is that one score, which was I believe 812 combo with 99.89, zero misses, somehow got passed by a 98.12 score with three misses, just because that guy had 20 more combos. So I was very confused by this type of
Oh,
scoring,
really?
and yeah, yeah.
Interesting. I'm not exactly sure because so Osu Laser, in case you guys don't know, it doesn't use Score V2. It's you can basically just think of it as Score V3 in a way, although it's not called that. but it's called laser scoring. I think that's like what people just call it. But it's I'm not exactly too sure how it works, so I don't want to try making assumptions. But like it could maybe be like a bit more exponential towards like when you have higher combo like in the end of a score. But like I do know that like I don't know. I don't want to try saying much because like I'm not super familiar with laser scoring yet, and it still does change every now and then. So I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I just sent you
But
the tweet just so you can see, where my frustration comes from. I really hope that, I mean, to be fair, considering that many people have seed Gaucho, I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be able to get the highest badge, unfortunately, because of that. But I mean, just
oh,
looking at this, it's what the hell, man?
hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think. Oh, okay. Something that I do know is true about laser scoring compared to Score V2 is that in Score V2, like your accuracy weighs directly into your score. So like when you like if you were to stop playing in Score V2, your score would go down. But in laser, that doesn't happen. Like if you like FC to the end and you have like 900k and then you miss the rest of the map, you still have 900k in laser scoring. So that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you see it, those two, I mean,
That's like a very extreme case, and that's definitely something that should be worked out of the scoring system because that definitely I agree shouldn't be possible.
yeah, and also because I want my badge, right?
True, yeah, true, so true.
Yeah, very true, man. I mean, at the end, it's all about playlist D. Fiery
Yeah,
pretty much already sealed it because he's a crazy guy and he actually got a very good score on that wacky
tech map,
tech
yeah,
map. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, Jesus, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get 4.5 million on that playlist. But hey, I mean, we'll see what happens. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, you have
yeah,
been grinding them yourself, so I'm pretty sure
true.
you did FC Gaucho, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you basically collected 5 million on every playlist except for playlist D.
yeah. I haven't played that one yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
Uh,
pretty doable. Just that one tech map, you gotta try and get anything above 400, 500k, and you're basically set, I'd say.
yeah, Fiery has like talked to me about it. He's like, dude, no one can play this map. I'm a well, he didn't word it that way, but he was like, this map is like insane. Should not be in this like in the spotlights.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, it
yeah.
doesn't
Anyway.
help that they also had Kakuzetsu, and on that one difficulty, it's actually a difficulty I'm also mind blocked on, so that's gonna be very
Oh
fun.
no.
Yeah, very unlucky. But still, hey, laser is a thing, future is a thing. Actually, what are your thoughts on spotlights as a general different way
Um,
to approach the badge system?
I think the badges were more of an incentive for people to actually play spotlights because a lot of people are hesitant to like play laser. Like, oh, it's not finished. It's in beta. Like, a lot of changes are being made, and that's probably the whole point. Is that like there's all these features and like nobody's actually testing them, stress testing them. Like, actual players aren't playing on laser actively, and like I think it was a really smart way to get players testing um, the laser client more and like having incentive to like grind for scores, even though score submission is not a thing yet. And so I think it's been really beneficial because like I know Bubbleman mentioned like his frustrations with like the scoring system changing in the middle of spotlights. Like the whole point, like you mentioned, it was a test run, and the whole point is that like laser needs players to like play test and like submit like genuine issues that they've had like from playing the game. And yeah, I think spotlights was a really good way to do that.
Yeah, well, hopefully they fix the scoring thing. Unfortunately, I already got cucked. I don't think I'm gonna be getting this badge, but well, hey, we'll see what happens. Maybe
Yep.
my 99.89 score will eventually be worth more than a 96 with 20 more combo. No, okay, that's an exaggeration. That was not 96,
Yeah.
98. Okay, let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
So
But your point's definitely valid. Yeah.
yeah. So before we switch into because we talked about Osu a ton right now. I kind of want to talk
Yeah.
about your ventures on the YouTube platform. But before we do that, I actually want to go back to the tournament thing for a quick question that
Okay.
was in my mind because It seems like, obviously these days it's very hard to define the rankers because if everyone is a D-ranker, no one is a D-ranker, right? So
True. Yep.
at least in 5 digits, you always know there's these groups of people who are gonna just stay in 5 digit, continue to play 5 digit tournaments. You know who these
Hmm.
are. Everyone knows who
Yep.
they are. Basically, the entire tournament scene currently is not very friendly to newer players unless they join a super team. But
Yeah, and in a way that's like if you want a chance of first place, then yeah, that's definitely true.
yeah, so some people, even very high rank caliber players, have been suggesting the removal of badges for tournament that are rank limited. And right off the bat, I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't think badges should be limited to the best of the best. But
Hmm.
this is a problem. So I'd like to know your thoughts about this and how do you fix the ranker problem if there is a way.
I think a lot of people were surprised in the first place that badges ended up being given for rank restricted tournaments. And I think the fact that it's gotten as big as it is now, like you could say like, oh, it shouldn't have gotten here in the first place, but like you saying that doesn't really mean anything because like I mean we're here now, like this is how it is now, so like let's do something about it. But the biggest thing is like assigning like value. Like the one of the biggest suggestions is like assigning a value or like distinguishing between like higher and lower value badges. Um, but I think that can lead to like a lot of bias and sometimes there's like very high rank tournaments. Like the team that won had like no struggle at all, and like or sometimes like it was even less competition than a rink restricted tournament. Like the level of play was lower, everything was lower, and like the team that won had an easier time winning in like some open rink tournaments compared to rink restricted tournaments. Um, so it's very hard to judge the value of a badge. And I think if you try assigning like a number value to a badge like you would do with PP, that's I think where like that's probably like one of the worst things you can do because it's so like objectifying to the tournament. Like every tournament is like just different. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I
but
believe there is a system in place right now to, which I can't remember how it's called, but it's a whole website where you can calculate your rank based on the amount of badges you get or something like that. And I
oh,
think it's
called
called
BWS.
BWS. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that is a it's like a seeding method. I think it was made in like 2018, like early 2018, and it like it was basically a way to like so like the idea behind it is that so how it works is like it takes your solo rank and then like it artificially bumps you up based on your how many badges you have. Um, it's just like a flat like every badge is weighed the same, but the idea with it is that like let's say you're playing like your rank 2000 and then you're playing 4 digit tournaments and like if you don't really have any badges like maybe chances are like you're not like a super D ranker, like you're not winning everything. So you can still play these rank restricted tournaments, and the idea is that like once you've gotten a couple badges, like maybe in that rank in that rank range, like those rank restricted tournaments, like you kind of graduate out of that rank range, and so you're even though like you don't need to set solo scores because like solo and tournaments are completely different. So like you don't need to set new high skill solo scores to go into the next rank range. Instead, like if you win enough tournament badges, then you'll end up getting pushed out of that rank range, and like artificially you'll be a higher rank, and so you can play higher rank tournaments. Um,
Oh, so for
that's
example,
basically yeah,
if you're a 5 digit who has a very high BWS, you can actually join 4 digit tournaments without farming,
yeah, exactly.
and but you'll be
So
banned from 5 digit tournaments.
yeah, it's like you rank up through your tournament badges instead of getting new top plays. That's how it works.
I see. Well, that doesn't
And
seem too bad.
yeah, it was basically a solution to like this issue of like people could stay in the same rank range and like because like there's no distinction or like there's like such a big separation between solo play and tournament play. Like they're completely different. Like everything like you could be the most accomplished tournament player and like none of it would show in your solo rank. And the fact that tournaments were using solo rank for seeding um, was a pretty big problem because obviously it represents like your maximum potential if it's like if you do farm regularly, but like not everyone does that. Like some people find it boring, some people only play tournaments, and like if you use solo rank, like it's only a matter of time before like it gets really misleading, and that ended up being what happened. So yeah, BWS was created as a way to like use tournament performance as a way to measure rank ranges. And yeah, nowadays it's pretty much used everywhere, which is really cool to see.
So let's. Well, I mean, I guess it's a good solution. Do you think it could be improved somehow, BWS, or is it good enough as is?
Um, I think all it really needs to do is like push you out of a rank range after a certain amount of badges. So I can talk about it a bit more. I'm the person who made BWS, so I kind of know why things are the way they are. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so um, like it's exponential. So like okay, so sometimes there's players that have like maybe one or two badges that when like sometimes you get a badge, but like just because you were on the winning team, not necessarily because like you're a D-ranker. Um, and so like sometimes you have like one or maybe even two badges, but you're not necessarily at the top skill of like your rank range. Um, maybe you were just like on the winning team and you pretty much just got carried. Like sometimes you don't even show up to matches and your team wins for you, and you end up
Yeah.
with a badge. And um, like those sorts of players, like they won't get pushed very high in their BWS rank with only one or two badges because like it is definitely possible for that to happen. Um, but if you only have one or two badges and you are still like you're like one of the best players in your rank range and like you're gonna keep winning tournaments, um then like it's not a problem for you because like once you get your third, fourth, fifth badge, like you're not going to be in that rank range anymore. And if you want to get more badges, it's going to have to be from higher rank tournaments. And that's basically the whole idea. That's why like your first badge pretty much does nothing to your rank, and then like second, third, and then like once you get into like the tens of badges, um, like since it's exponential, at some point like you just hit rank one BWS or like rank two, and some people have like thought about like, oh, we should sort of balance out the upper rank so that it's not just like you don't just get shot up to like 2 digit. But like the idea with BWS is less about having an accurate number and more about like putting you in a certain range. Um, so like for example, there's some 5 digit players who like from before BWS was this thing, they like had like maybe 7 or 8 badges from 5 digit tournaments. And so once BWS came out, they were ranked like 100 BWS as a 5 digit. And
Yeah.
it's like some people were like, oh, like you have to do something about that. Like they're not rank 100. Like they're pretty good, but they're not rank 100 skill. And the like that's not the point with BWS. It's not about like giving them an accurate number. It's more about like once you reach a certain point, like there's no rank restricted tournaments. Like there's no tournaments that are like you have to be 200 or lower to play. It's less about like giving you an accurate seeding number and more about like jumping you out of rank restricted tournaments once you get enough badges. And I think like rank restricted tournaments should be there for people with less experience. That's kind of the whole point. Like, competition is a bit lower. Like, not all the top players are there, so you have less experience, and you can sort of be in like a more like like lower competition sort of environment. So, like, even though those players like all their badges were from 5 digit tournaments, like they certainly have enough experience to compete at a much higher level. They're pretty much no different from like a like rank 500 player who like only plays farm maps. As far as like tournament performance goes, like they would be able to 1v1 and like it would be a pretty even match just because like of the experience of the players and like tournament skills.
I see. I
So
see. So yeah, that
yeah,
definitely, definitely makes sense to have this type of ranking, but it's not really about the ranking, it's more about kind of dividing players into different categories based on how many badges they get, so they can no longer just stomp 5 digits. Now I
yeah,
like to use
yeah,
the 5 digit example because nowadays 4 digits are actually very, very good.
yeah.
So
Like
No.
there's not enough slots in the top like 3 digit and higher to like fit all the good players in the game. So
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a lot. There's a lot now.
yeah,
So recently you have started making some YouTube content, which we have also
yeah.
mentioned throughout the podcast. And after
Thank
doing a
you.
bit of digging, I found out that, at least on your current YouTube channel, your first video appearance dates to July of 2016. So that's 2 years after you actively started playing. And I believe that's
Yeah,
when you were really first starting to get into tournaments, at least according to what you told me earlier. So
yeah, yeah.
was that a conscious decision on your part, or do you have any other older channels out there that you've kept secret?
Oh no, no. This is like my main channel, or like this is like really the only channel that I've had. Like I think that this like if you check my YouTube stats, I think I joined in like 2012 or something. Um, so no, this is like the first YouTube account I've ever had. Um, I like a long time ago in like ancient forgotten times, I made like Minecraft videos, but they
Oh,
died.
yes.
Yep, the classic.
That's
Um,
great. What, I mean, do you have those anymore, or were those on a
no,
different channel?
no, they were on the same channel, but like I like deleted them one day. Like it was like too long ago for me to even remember when or why I deleted them. I just like I went back to my channel one day and like I looked back and like they weren't there anymore, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember when I had Minecraft videos. They're not there anymore. Huh.
Oh, okay,
Like
okay.
I pretty much forgot about them, but yeah, not that exciting. But like ever since I was little, because like I watched like I watched a lot of Let's Players, Minecraft YouTubers, and like I always wanted to get into content creation, and something that like when I was younger, like this frustration that I would have is that like, oh, do you remember the word squeaker? Like people who like online. I don't know if you ever heard that term before.
Squeaker. That rings
Yeah.
a bell, but I don't think I've heard that word in years.
So it's basically like little kids, so their voice is higher. Like they haven't, hit puberty yet. And like, like you imagine like the typical like 10-year-old on like Xbox Live or
Ah,
something. Like you
yes,
can
yes.
tell, yeah, like they used to be called squeakers because like their voice is a lot higher. Um, and like back then, like 2012, I was um like so when I made my YouTube account, I was 9 years old. I was like almost turning 10. So yeah, I was a little baby still, and I was like, I want to make YouTube videos. I want to make Minecraft Let's Play, but like I was like a little baby. I was a little kid. And what am I supposed to do? So
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's
probably for the best that you wouldn't start that young.
yeah, but it's like something that frustrated me because I have always wanted to make YouTube content. So like I don't know. I think like being able to do it nowadays has been like really fulfilling for me because it's something I've always wanted to do.
I see, I see. That's very interesting because, you never really struck me as the type of guy to wanting to be in the content creator world because, you were such a kind of a professional figure, if so to speak, in the tournament community with all of the advice that you always give on your live stream
Oh,
on twitch.tv/DigitalHypno.
oh,
Um,
true. I stream every day. Well, I started streaming every day like maybe 2 months ago. So yeah,
But
follow
yeah, I
follow
mean,
me.
you have definitely been making some YouTube content as of late, and it's extremely interesting. And I gotta say, very different than many of the other things that I'm seeing on YouTube these days. Obviously, you watched the recent Tokaku podcast with Etienne because I saw you
Yep.
commented on it.
Oh yeah.
And what are your thoughts on the current OSU content landscape on YouTube? And what are some of your favorite content creators, if you have any? Outside of
So
me, of course. I mean, it's a given.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean like like when you make a tier list of like OC YouTubers, usually when you make a tier list, it's like the best are in S tier, and then like some are in A tier, and like most are in B tier. In a typical tier list, but if we're talking OSU content creators, Spaza definitely S tier, and then no one else really comes close. There's no one in A tier, no one else in S tier.
Yeah,
Spaza
yeah,
is just something else.
I can.
Yeah,
I think Pishifet tried, but
yeah, he
obviously
tried,
not
but
on the
like
same level. It's
yeah, he's a solid B compared to you. Like, think
yeah,
about
yeah. I
it.
mean, okay, let's just take me out, okay?
Okay,
Just to be
yeah,
fair to every other content creator,
okay,
okay?
okay, okay. So personally, I'm not super involved in like the whole like entertainment like world of like OSU content. I think I'm much less involved in like what sorts of content are out there compared to like Tokaku and Etienne, like they were talking about in their podcast, which you should definitely watch, by the way. Um, I think that was a really cool podcast to listen to. Like, if you could link it in the description or something, Spaza, that would be
Yeah, I
awesome.
will
Because I
do
think,
that.
yeah, I think that's a really good watch. But um, I'm like, I don't know, like I'm not actually as involved. Like, I have been making OSU content, but I'm not actually that involved in OSU YouTube. I sort of pretty much have just been enjoying doing my own thing. And while I do enjoy making content, it's like I don't really enjoy conforming to the standards of what's kind of already out there. I think like um, I've talked about this before, like I think on my stream a bit, a couple days ago. But I think like people are very afraid of like changing, or of like change in general. Like you know, you think about like the new OSU website, and now OSU Lazer, things like that. But even like more so like societal changes, like people are very afraid of like straying away from like what has proven to work. And um I think that like scares a lot of people into like thinking like if I want to like become a popular content creator, like you know Binfi maybe or Koifishu, like what else am I supposed to do other than like copy what they're doing, because like what they're doing seems to be working. um and if you're not careful, if you're an aspiring content creator, it can be very easy to like become like a copy paste of like very like exploitable concepts, um for the sake of content that like don't actually provide any substance. Like you watch a couple and then at a certain point, like you see the title and you already know what the video is going to be. The video is 10 minutes long and you already know what's in there, and like it's like it becomes like less rewarding to watch, I feel like. And yeah, like I said, I'm not like super involved, and like there are some unique videos out there, and I appreciate like people like Koi Fishu like using his platform to promote like concepts, or like not concepts but like current events in OSU and stuff like that, helping spread the word. Like trying Lazer on stream is another thing. Like I know Koi Fisher did an interview with Peppy, I think like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Um, and like not like not necessarily trying to bash on YouTubers like those, because like they do a really good job, and like it's not like all their content is copy paste. Like I think every YouTuber does have some unique content that like does give value and like is rewarding to watch, and like you come out of it feeling like yeah, that video was pretty good. But definitely like if you're trying to be a content creator, it's more about like people want to know you as like being a certain person, or like okay, actually, no matter what you do, like people are going to like think of you as like a certain person. Um, like that I'll sort of like do this in a way where I don't mention specific names, but like when you think of um YouTubers who do profile reviews, or like yeah, like profile reviews, like you think of like that YouTuber name, and then like one of the things that comes to mind is like profile review, um, or like guess your rank, and it's like you sort of like associate that YouTuber with like certain kinds of videos, and like you should be like the sort of like content creator that you want other people to think of you as, um, pretty much. I think
Yeah, that's kind of
yeah,
an interesting concept because, I could I've do I've done a lot of content in my time. If
yeah.
based on when you join on my YouTube channel, you may think of me as a different type of content creator. For example, people that joined my community back in 2016 knew me as the music guy because I was making, the sounds of Ruruchi, Osu Megamix, all that type
Oh,
of
yep,
stuff. So that's how
yeah.
people knew me. then people who joined in 2017, 2018 knew me as the Circle People stuff guy that was a DT player and was uploading also player spotlights. And that was
Yeah.
basically my entire thing. Then in 2019, I was literally just also streamer who would sometimes review tablets. And these days, I'm known for the guy who reviews mechanical keyboards and also indulges in current modern trends, such as the ones you mentioned, like profile reviews, guess your ranks, stuff like that. I
Yeah.
guess, at the end, people are gonna be driving their own conclusions and doing comparisons, which is just the nature of YouTube, but it can be annoying to some extent because for it, I don't think that a certain type of content should be limited to just one creator. So, for example,
Hmm.
the most common thing would probably be the also 1v1s, right? So, Binfi didn't come up with this
Yeah.
idea. It's an ancient concept that has existed on YouTube for quite some time now. But
Hmm.
what Binfi did is essentially he kind of made it into his own brand of content because he made it a bit more interesting and a bit more engaging to give out prizes and things like that.
Hmm.
But because of that now, if you do a 1v1 video, you are bound to get people who are like, oh, is this budget Beamfy? And then you do
Mm.
a guess your rank and it's like, oh, are you trying to be Koifishu? And then you do a fucking keyboard review and you're just like, oh, are you trying to be the Project Ace? Like, no, that's not
Oh,
what I'm trying to do, mate. I just review keyboards. I mean,
yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
thing to kind of compare someone to somebody else, but at least when it comes to me, I've been doing it all basically. So right now I'm in that sweet spot to some extent where I can kind of please everyone. Uh, because if you're looking for gameplay, I can provide that to some extent. If you're looking for keyboard reviews, I can do that. But I can also do more laid back, pure entertainment, YouTube algorithm
Yeah.
farming stuff like guess your ranks and things like that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. I think
like
that,
also motherfuckers be like, but that's literally one video. I'm not gonna
yeah.
indulge into that any further.
Yeah. I think like something that's very frustrating, I think, as a YouTuber, and like I'm obviously, less experienced with that. But I can definitely see how it would be very frustrating for YouTubers to like, especially if you're making it um, like a main source of income, like you kind of feel this pressure to conform to what's working, um, or like what has worked for other people, and like you run this risk of like being compared very easily. Um, so I think like doing YouTube works best when you don't have pressure to, I guess, be popular or make money from it. Um, because like then you end up feeling like more freedom to like do what you want. And on that note, I'd like to mention that like if you have like an idea or like inspiration to make something, even like if it's a YouTube video or like whatever it is, I feel like I feel like a lot of people sometimes say, "Oh, um, I'm just gonna like kind of like put in like whatever meh effort, and then like if people like it, then I'll bump up my like the amount of effort that I put into it." But like the way I see it is like if you make a high quality product, even if like people have never heard of you before, like they will pick up on that very quickly. Like this is pretty high quality, and like I want to see more stuff like this. And like word spreads around very quickly when you do something that like catches people's attention. Um, Especially if it's like something unique, something that like not many people can offer, or like something that's very uniquely you, I guess. Like try to build your own identity instead of like if you want to get into content creation, like do something that like okay, I think my point is just like put in the effort that you would want to put in if you had already made it all the way. I think you should think about it that way. Like imagine you've already made it all the way and now you're making a video trying to please like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And like that amount of effort is what's going to get you there. That's pretty much how I feel. And like you shouldn't be afraid to be your own personality on the internet and in the whole YouTube world. Like, don't try to don't end up becoming a copycat or like copy paste sort of like filler content that exists for the sake of like trying to squeeze out numbers, because like I think what ends up happening is like if you don't develop a personality for yourself, you like you can like you get stuck in this trap where like that's the only kind of content you can make, because like if you make anything else, like your fan base doesn't care. They're only there for like the things that you've been doing to sort of like squeeze out like numbers, because like that's what they know you as. But if they know you as more of like a person, an entertainer, someone that like they can trust to make a high quality video, that like no matter what it is, like if they think you're funny, then like no matter what game you're playing, they're sure it's going to be funny. Like you look at Video Game Donkey, for example, who is like a really popular like gaming YouTuber, and like he's like built up this reputation. Like he used to only play one game, but like he's sort of left that in the past and like just sort of like done his own like thing for fun, and like he has like this very recognizable character where like at this point like no matter what game he's playing, you sort of know like just based on the YouTuber like what kind of style it's going to be, and like you're going to be able to get that same experience of like uniqueness and like his personality like ingrained into every video that he makes. And I think that's something that like more people should strive to do. um
Yeah,
so yeah.
but at the same time, I think it's very tough to do as a smaller content creator because you don't even really have an audience in the first place. And this kind of applies to Twitch as well, because if you think about it, there are top players who are getting hundreds and hundreds of viewers when they play Osu, but the second they switch to something else, they may even go down to less than 30 viewers.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily talking about myself because it's not like I get hundreds and hundreds of viewers, but even like there are large streamers, people in top 50, like 2-digit players that usually get hundreds of viewers on a daily basis. And then whenever they switch to something else, all of the fan base basically disappears. So,
Yeah.
it really
I mean,
depends.
yeah, and it depends on their goals as a content creator. Like if they just kind of want to stream whatever and they don't really care about developing their fan base, then it probably doesn't really matter to them. But
Yeah, of course. I think the best thing to do, because nowadays YouTube is very much more algorithm based than anything else. The way you get your views is not necessarily correlated to the quality of your content. So, for instance, you can spend a very long time making a very good video, and it may not be seen by as many people as, let's say, something dumb like not even profile reviews, because I don't think profile reviews are really big on YouTube. I just think they're a nice way to do some things on stream. But let's say something like, I don't know, like some clickbait algorithm stuff, right?
yeah.
So to give you an example, the other day I kind of wanted to play the YouTube algorithm game to see whether it was gonna work or not. So what I did is I found this map, and after I played it, because it was a good, it was a fun map, that one with the cool storyboard and whatnot.
Okay.
And so I played it, and I was like, you know what? I mean, this is a nice map. I may just make a video about this. So what I did is I searched for Osu on YouTube, and
Uh-huh.
one of the first videos I saw was actually a video from Rafis that was called the most unique Osu map or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
No, that's
And so that video ended up breaking the YouTube algorithm somehow, because it had, again, a good title that's kind of intriguing to people, and it had that flashy, very epic thumbnail that was mostly a joke, obviously. So
yeah.
what I did, I thought, okay, let me do something similar. So I called my video "Most Unique Map of 2021," and I made a thumbnail that was basically like, very straightforward, just the anime girl text, just like the meta of YouTube. And unfortunately, that video, which is way less quality and way less effort than most of my stuff, ended up getting something crazy like 200k views in 2 weeks. And now that map has tons of people knowing about it, which is kind of nice, admittedly, because I like to promote mappers, especially when they're small.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's 100% just me playing into the YouTube algorithm, you know? It's not
Yeah.
really about the quality anymore. It's just about how you sell your stuff.
Yeah. Although I think like, and obviously like I'm not like super into like content creation. So I guess this is just kind of like my mindset as like someone who's not super involved. But I think it just comes down to how you want your like fan base to be developed. Like, do you want to build it from the ground up, or do you kind of just want to pick up scraps from like whoever happens to be like you know epic click on your video dopamine rush to the brain, um, and like just kind of move on to the next dopamine rush video, or like I don't know. It's like basically just like I mean we can probably talk about this for hours, so I won't get too into it. But I think it just comes down to like, do you want to like make content or do you want to like develop a personality? And like I think that's like I don't know, kind of the way I see it. But like ultimately, I think you should like yeah, like it's obviously more effort and like the system is in such a way where like if you just cater to it, then like you'll squeeze out more numbers. But it's a question of like, do you want to squeeze out numbers or like do you want to like curate a fan base that really appreciates the content that you're putting out? And I feel like another thing is that, like, okay, do you know the YouTuber Summoning Salt?
Oh, yeah, I think I heard of that.
Yeah, he's made like speedrunning videos, like speedrun history on like different games.
Yeah.
He
I think I saw a video of his regarding the Dream controversy.
oh really?
Either
And
that
you're thinking of
or
someone else.
Mr. Krabs overdoses on ketamine. I think it was one of those two.
Oh. Okay, you might be thinking of something else unless there's a video I haven't seen, but he basically like makes speedrun history documentary videos,
Oh, that's
and
Easy Escape? Alright, I'm sorry, yeah. Then, yeah, it's probably
oh,
somebody else.
okay, yeah, but he like has his very like own distinct style, and like he puts a lot of effort into his videos, and like the thing is like he provides something unique, and even though it maybe didn't play into the algorithm very well. Like the way that he was able to build his fan base, like he has a million subs now on YouTube, and like the way he built his fan base, um, like at least at the start, it's like he would like share his videos in like related communities, like speedrunning communities, and like word would get around because of the quality of the video, and so as a result, he was able to develop his fan base to the point where like he kept producing this high quality content and like eventually it like he did have videos that like popped in the algorithm because like obviously like every successful creator has had videos like this, but I think my point is just that like don't try to like squeeze numbers from the very beginning. I think it's like it seems like a lot more fulfilling in the long run if you um like sort of cater your content to like what brings you value and like what brings the community that you're providing for value. And like even if you don't like squeeze numbers at the very start, if you develop a more genuine like fan base and community around your videos, then like you'll like they'll stick around, I feel like. And that like you can I don't know. I think you get the idea by now. So
Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, I guess this can be debated because, as I said, it's mostly algorithm based these days. But,
yeah,
obviously, I'm not gonna tell somebody who has never created content before to just play into whatever trend is going on. To be fair, I don't think there's any content creators that really do that at the moment. So, at the very least, we seem to be in a good spot when it comes to that. Though, as I said, I've been making content for such a long time. I think, what's funny about what you said is I think most people that start on YouTube, or at least I hope so, they don't really start with the intention of going anywhere. Because I
mhm,
think if they do that, then it's most likely gonna be a miserable experience when you upload a video and it gets like 20 views,
yeah,
So
yeah.
I never really did that for the better part of probably 8 years or so.
Oh wow.
Only like from 2019 onwards, I was sitting here when the pandemic just started, and I was just sitting here with like 15k subs thinking, man, I never actually put effort into this. What would happen if I were to make more, make actual thumbnails and maybe, just try to interact more, do more things like that. So that's kind of when I started to kind of do things like Let's Argue, which was a
Oh,
series I started, or other things of that nature. And then of course I also went into the more common man stuff like profile reviews and whatnot.
yeah,
And it does give you some results, but in the long run I definitely agree that you can't be doing that all the time. At the same
yeah,
time though, I mean, if you're a massive channel, of course people are going to be watching you because that's what you are. But I
yeah,
think first you need to get there, and by all means necessary, even exploiting YouTube in a certain way could be the move. For example, Beamfy, uh, he used to be a pretty laid back content creator who even had a similar viewer count as I do right now, where it's basically like, he had videos that got a couple thousand views. Some videos would blow up and get like 100k, but it was pretty average on. But then, after he broke up into the YouTube algorithm by doing the thumbnail thing that we talked about earlier, and generally just being a bit more open and out there, he has grown massively because he created that kind of ecosystem throughout his channel. So I think
yeah,
it's really all about that, trying to figure out what you want to do as a content creator. This is why I don't think it's a good idea to really go into YouTube wanting to make money off of it, because if you do that, then more than likely you are gonna be in a very rough spot. I think it's a lot better to just have a job first of all,
true, true.
and maybe just engage in YouTube and stuff like that as either as a hobby or just as a creative outlet. Now I know
Yeah,
I've been doing that for the last 8 years or so. Only recently I've been making more YouTube stuff with the intent of growing my community, and I mean, at least in that regard, I'd say it's going very well. So I guess it really depends on what you want to do. Another example I can provide, right? And this, unfortunately, it's kind of sad, but it really depends on the way you look at it. So let's pick a random player, like, actually, let's pick a very good player. Let's pick Bubbleman, right?
okay,
So Bubbleman, in terms of merits within the game, he has, he is literally an all-rounder. He's capable of playing everything,
yeah,
and he also performs super well in tournaments. So at least from just the standpoint of pure merit, I can definitely see Bubbleman deserving at least 1k viewers all the time, like like some
yeah,
of those other big streamers like Vaxei or Whitecat, those performance players, right? So at least in that, he definitely deserves it. But when he goes live on Twitch, he's got around 150 200 viewers and stuff like that, which again, that's not a small number, but it's not comparable to those huge players, right?
yep,
So one thing I've noticed is Bubbleman does it out of just pure passion for the game. I don't think he really cares about growing his channel, because if you go on his YouTube channel, he has no thumbnails, he has no titles. Like his videos are literally just like name of map, mod, accuracy, FC. Like it's
yeah.
not really something
Cater.
that, yeah, exactly. But just imagine, right? Imagine if Bubbleman, like he definitely has the scores to be able to do so. For example, he has this FC on fast-paced society with hard rock, and
Yeah,
his video once again is literally just called fast-paced society hard rock 98 whatever FC, right? So if instead of that he had a nice thumbnail with text, a spaced stream, and maybe his face, and
yep,
as a title he would have something in caps lock, fast-paced society hard rock, or even something a bit more YouTube clickbaity like this FC took me 3 years, like something stupid like that. I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that video now, it wouldn't have 2000 views. It would most likely have at
Two hundred
least,
thousand.
yeah, something like that. It could be something ridiculous like that, and as a result, because of more people find out about him, he could have a major viewership that he definitely deserves. So I think it makes sense to play into the YouTube algorithm for a bit, and
Yeah,
then after you reach that level, you are basically free to do what you want. You know?
yeah. I think yeah, like you definitely do like your audience needs to come from somewhere. And I think like just to wrap up this topic, I think we can almost relate this to PP farming in a way. Like when you get into OSU, if your mindset is that you want to be a top player, you'll end up just rushing to like the meta farm maps and like you might squeeze out a lot of rank, but like in the end you have no like foundation and you're kind of like stuck playing the same thing or else like you feel like your skill level is like so much lower on everything else. And like even if you are a very well established like like foundations or fundamentals are like very solid, you're very well rounded in like in the OC sense, like you still need to like squeeze out top plays in order to gain rank and like gain like like climb the ladder. And that I think like you can make a lot of like comparisons to that sort of stuff to the YouTube algorithm. So yeah, and like the whole YouTube scene. So yeah, I think it's very similar.
Yeah. So it's always better to be an all-rounder rather than just going for one thing. Which
Well,
it,
it's
it's PP versus views. You either squeeze PP or you squeeze views.
yeah, I mean, like another thing is that like idke, for example, he like reached rank one as like a hard rock stream player in a time where like all like the top players like the meta was like DT aim, and like he just stayed committed to his niche, I guess, and like he like got very good at it, and like this is less even about like his identity being created around it, but more of just like the way he was able to reach rank one. Like he just stuck with what was most comfortable for him or like what he was most passionate about. And like he was able to work his way up and like squeeze out numbers with like a style that no one else was doing. And like it still worked. And like it was probably much more fulfilling to him than if he just like sort of like squeezed out DT plays, like learned to play DT just because it's meta. And like if the PP like system changes, then like let's say speed is now buffed, so like now you have to become a speed player to keep up with the meta. Like if you just stick to your own niche, like you might not always be able to squeeze out like every amount of PP that's available to you, but I think it's a lot more fulfilling in the end.
All right. So
Awesome.
yeah, definitely. So sorry, let me just take a moment to drink some water. You can do the same.
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
It's been a long
Part of
time.
time. Yeah, those of you listening, if you've made it this far, that is, thanks for listening. Drink some water, and we continue on.
All right. So as you get a nice deserved sip of water, let me ask you something. Right. Let's move away from the online world for a moment.
Okay.
So this is something I ask to every guest, and I'm always very surprised by the types of answers I receive for the most part.
Okay.
So, who is DigitalHypno? By the way, you can tell me whether you find it more comfortable for me to call you with your username or Habib, because I know it's
Oh, I
pretty
think
interchangeable.
yeah, Habib is I think more natural for me to respond to.
All right. So, who is Habib outside of the internet world, and what are some of your offline hobbies that people may not know about? Like stuff like cooking or stuff like that.
I see.
My followers know I do some gardening sometimes,
Oh,
and I
interesting.
obviously do cooking. I mean, you would know that if you follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen your yeah, I mean who doesn't follow you on Twitter? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
True. Um so I am 19 years old. I turned 19 last month, February 21st. And I like I mentioned I live in Florida and I am finishing my second year of college now, university. Um going into like psychology in um, the field of like what's called human computer interaction, which is like basically like the psychology of how people interact with like um, computers and like devices and like even games and like things like that. And I'm like my I guess sort of like career path right now is I'm looking into getting into research, there's a field called user experience research, which is basically um, like doing research on like what the user wants, and then like being able to like make the connection between what the business wants and then what the user would want to like create the best experience for them. Um, and um, so yeah, that is something I'm looking into. And like on a similar note, um, I'm soon gonna be starting doing like sorts of like user experience research projects, like in the OSU world, sort of to get my own experience.
Ooh,
So yeah, that will be coming soon. I do plan on like making like I guess presenting my research in a video format. So that's like I guess like a long-term sort of like content that I plan on making. Um,
that will be
but
very interesting.
yeah, like I can talk about it a bit now that like one idea that I definitely want to do research on is like the loved category in general. Like it needs to be more accessible to players somehow. And so like I plan on like doing a research project where I look into what exactly like what people even know about the loved category, like if there's like big misconceptions or like things people don't know about the loved category or like ways to make it more effective. Because like it is the like community driven category of the game. And if the community doesn't even know about it or know how it works or know how to vote or like know the power that they have in like choosing maps, then like it's for nothing. And so I think like it can be optimized a lot more. And that comes down to like having like research done into it. So yeah, that's sort of the whole field career wise that I plan on going into. Um, and as far as hobbies go, outside of I guess content creation, for the last few years, I really like studying languages. I think it's
Oh, that's
something
nice.
that's like, yeah, I think it's something that's like really fulfilling to me. The main language that I've studied is Korean, which I picked up interest on in like 2013, back when I was more into League, because I would see like because like with esports and everything is like a big Korean scene, and like hearing advice from Korean top players, like seeing Reddit posts of like Korean advice that got translated to English, like stuff like that, like really made me more interested in like the sort of culture and like language in general. And so I started studying back then, and it's been pretty on and off. But like I'm definitely yeah, like and definitely in my free time, I like to like nowadays I like maybe read like Korean VNs or like watch Korean YouTube and stuff like that to sort of get more exposure to the language. Um, so that is definitely a hobby I have, and like part of that, like the OC community, people are like from all around the world, and I um like it's like you can pretty much meet people from like any country. Like you can meet natives from any country, and like people are very friendly to each other in the OC community. Like it's very like for the most part very welcoming, and I think people are also very welcoming to like non-natives who want to learn their language.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, that's very true. You can get in chats with people and just practice languages and stuff like that, even in voice chat,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
very
exactly.
very nice, more direct experience than just doing textbook stuff or watching
Oh
media.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like something I've set up in my Discord server is like since I'm like somewhat passionate about like language study and stuff like that, I like developed a sort of like channel and like roles for like what languages you're comfortable with, and then like I have a study or a channel for like language studies, and like if people want to ask questions to like native speakers, then like you can ping that role, and then like people who know that language or like are learning that language will get notified like people are talking about this language right now. Native speakers can like come answer the question, and I think like the whole community aspect of OSU in that regard is like really valuable um for that. So yeah, definitely something. It's not really like a main priority, but like a sort of side effect of the community that I'm developing and like my own interests, that like I think it would be cool to sort of like cater a sort of like language learning community within my Discord server.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, that sounds terrific. Very
yeah, I
nice,
think
man.
yeah. So that's been pretty exciting, and like in a similar vein, there's like this is like less unique of an idea, I guess, but like having study updates, like we can sort of like keep each other in check. Because I think studying can be really rewarding. I mean, like the way that I see it, like sometimes like you play a game of like League of Legends or like I don't know, like Overwatch, like Valorant, CS:GO. Like you play a match, like you maybe spend like 40 minutes or so, or like a whole session. Maybe it's like 4 or 5 hours, and like if you're like on a losing streak or having a bad day, like you just feel worse in the end, I guess. But like with something like studying, like it can be really like draining sometimes, like to figure things out. But I think like no matter what, like if you put time into studying, like you'll come out of it feeling more like you have a better understanding of things, and like it's just like much more rewarding if you're able to find something that you're passionate about. And um
Yeah, definitely. I mean, meanwhile on my Discord server, all we do is fight over JPEGs, fucking waifus, because I have the waifu bot now. Oh
oh, that's
man,
funny.
that that was that was a good addition to my server. Let me tell you that much.
It's funny.
Well, so I have another question because,
Yeah.
obviously we live in very modern times. We live in a very, technological society, and my parents are real boomers. They don't really understand technology, Twitch. They don't know what I do on my computer.
Uh-huh.
But obviously, you have, you know, considering how many tournaments you've played in the past, you've basically spent a lot of weekends just doing
Oh
things
yeah.
in front of the computer and things like that. And you also received quite the hefty amount of merchandise from your Osu World Cup wins. So surely they, do your
Oh
parents understand Osu, or, the concept of Osu tournaments, the stuff you do, and what do they think about it?
yeah. Actually, I think both of my parents are quite like interested in it, which is something that I'm very thankful for. um like they both like sometimes my dad gets frustrated in the typical like you're spending your weekends on the computer, spend time with me, and I'm like oh Sue. But anyway, yeah, my dad is pretty understanding, and like he like sometimes asks me because um like he knows like at some point like you have to explain like I'm playing a tournament match, and so um like he sometimes asks me, especially about the World Cup, because like when I got on the World Cup team for the first time in 2017, like like my parents knew that I was playing tournaments at the time, so I was like, wow, playing the World Cup. And then like nowadays, sometimes like when my dad asks me about like tournaments, like sometimes like he like even though he doesn't really know how the game works, he um he sometimes likes like watching my matches. Like during OWC 2018 and 2019 grand finals, like my dad asked me to play like set up the stream for him. And so like okay, 2018 was like the grand finals match where like Bubbleman, like the whole Doland commentary, and like
Yeah, it
um
was very hype.
yeah, and like ever since then, like my dad sometimes asks me about Bubbleman. I don't even know. I think Bubbleman knows about this, but um like after the match he was like, "Oh, that one British what was his name?" And on Bubbleman, he's like, "Yeah, Bubbleman. Yeah, he played very, very well." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's very good."
Oh, that's
But
so nice.
yeah, he's pretty nice about it. But I think my mom is like lot more like involved or like understanding about like how the game works. Like she's even like even recently, but like for a long time, she's been interested in like playing Osu herself, which I think is very interesting. But
Oh
um,
god,
yeah,
the genetics. We can now have an
genetics.
answer. Is she gonna be good?
Oh, that's funny. But my mom, like so like she really likes like I guess all kinds of music, and like sometimes she comes to my room and she's like, oh, like or this is especially the case like sometimes when I have friends over, and like I have like the OC music playing from my speakers, and then like my mom, like afterwards my mom was like, well, like OC has like cool songs and stuff like that. And like um so yeah, I think both my parents are very like understanding of the game, um and like tournaments and like how it works. And like sometimes like after the because like at this point they both know like weekend equals tournament, and so like after like like on Saturdays or Sundays, and my mom is like, "Oh, did you have matches today? Like, how'd they go?" or something like that. So yeah, very
Oh,
very supportive.
that's very nice, man. Very nice and
Yeah,
very
I'm
unique, I
thankful.
gotta say. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people they don't have a similar experience when it comes to video games and stuff like that, because they don't really
Yeah,
understand it all that well. But I mean, at least in the US, they seem to be a bit more like, because video games, Twitch, streaming. I think those are very much everyday terms. Meanwhile,
for
here we
us,
are,
yeah.
yeah, we are a bit behind when it comes to the general mentality of that. But that's the cultural difference right there.
Yeah, cultural difference and also generational differences. But like I think over time, um, like as like the younger generation now sort of grows up, like things will be a lot more like balanced. I think like parents, like us nowadays, or like I guess like our generation nowadays, like becoming parents, will hopefully, sort of like 'cause, like this is a very, very like rapid, like and you've probably heard this a lot, but like rapid technology growth in the last like few decades, and like this huge like generational divide of like the way that everyday life is. And I think us nowadays, having grown up in like such a like fast-paced like technological
In a
society.
fast-paced
Yep,
society.
really fast-paced society, truly.
Yeah.
But I think like we like this generation hopefully will be like more understanding of like our kids sort of like being into like what's currently trending, and like being more understanding of like new technologies and stuff like that. So that's my hope. That's what I imagine. That's like kind of my understanding of it.
I see. So, I have another thing to ask you, probably the last thing before we get into the sub questions.
Okay.
Some of which were extremely high IQ, they have been filtered, so don't worry about that. But
Okay.
yeah, so when
I,
people
I
think,
would like actually when we get there, I'm curious to know some of the questions that you like filtered out, just like for the sake of curiosity. But
oh yeah,
anyway,
yeah, of
we'll get
course,
there.
of course. So, like generally speaking, I think most people, when they think about laid back players or just people who are very, very chill in general, you seem to be one of the first people that really come to mind. And to be fair, I
Oh,
never saw you raging or shouting or anything. Like, you didn't, like, at least from what I experienced from your live stream, you don't really seem to ever show your frustration in a more visible manner compared to most other players. Would you
yeah.
say that's natural, or is that something you developed over time and has to do with your mindset and the fact that you have this much tournament experience?
Um, I think it's not really about tournament experience and more about just like, yeah, like you said, like I think my mindset, like ever since I think middle school is like the first time I remember saying this, but um, I always sort of like valued having like um a more like objective mindset over, or like logical mindset over like an emotional mindset, or like okay, rational is the word. Like having a rational mindset over like an emotional mindset, and like more so trying to like understand things and um like stuff like that, rather than like act based on like how I feel. Um, I think like naturally I just tend to be um more about like, so like I guess like I think like the way I see it, like something being good or bad is like your own interpretation of the situation. Like sometimes like you got $100 today and you're like, oh, like that's like so good. Like you just got $100. But then um some people, especially like let's say they're used to getting $1,000 a day, and now they only got 100, and now they're like today sucks. So it's like really up to perspective, the way that you perceive things. But like I think if you're able to perceive things as like more objective, like let's say you're used to getting $1,000 and now you only get 100, instead of being like, this sucks, where's my $1,000? It's more like, okay, well today I only have $100, so like what changes now? And it's less about like, I didn't get my $1,000.
Yeah,
I,
so I
don't know,
guess
I think
it's I guess it's
yeah,
more like rationalizing the problems rather than just reacting out of feeling. So if you
yeah,
rationalize whatever happens, you kind of I know, because of the internet now, the word logic has become this fucking meme. But you use your logic and whatever, so you kind of rationalize what's going on instead of having a reactionary, very emotional response where you
Yeah.
may rage and shout and do all of that.
Yeah, like if
Smash your
I
keyboard because you missed on a 5 star or whatever.
yeah, like if I like am holding a score, like I think this happened like yesterday. I wasn't really holding a score. Okay, so like I said, I tap with my right hand on my number pad. So I set my pause key to 0, number pad 0. So I can just pause with my thumb. Like this very rarely happens, but like sometimes I end up hitting the key with my thumb. Um, and so like I was doing like speed training yesterday, and then like 2/3 through the run, I just like I was doing a stream, and then like my thumb hit the space bar, and I like immediately like retried, even though like I wanted to finish the whole run. But then like I was just like, oh, I retried, lol, and then like I just like kept playing without saying anything. But it like wasn't really like me trying to like mask anything. It was more of just like I don't like it's not like, oh wow, I didn't get my full run, like I'm so frustrated that that happened. It's just like, oh okay, my thumb hit my 0 key, so like next time I play the map, just like make sure that doesn't happen, and like just sort of like take in like whatever just happened, and like sort of learn from it. And I think like no
Well, I
matter if
mean,
you
to
see
be fair,
something
if that happened on a very long map while you were FCing, that could have been a bit more frustrating.
oh well, even like if I okay, so also like I get lag spikes, and like if I'm like assessing and I get a lag spike, I'm just like, oh well, I lag spiked. Like it's not really in my control, I guess, so I don't get frustrated by it. But it's just um, or like in a tournament match, I've sometimes lost because of lag spikes, um, and stuff like that. It's not like I feel frustrated or I feel robbed or like I didn't get my $1,000 just because like metaphorically because of the lag spike. It's more like sort of taking the situation as it is, and like where do we go from here, is sort of like the mindset that I tend to have.
I see.
And so as a result, like you end up not really getting frustrated as much, and it's also like you can perceive things as like good or bad, but like I think like if you look at it a certain way, like like everything that happens, like you gain information from it, and it's up to you to like be able to use that information to its fullest. And I think like um if you're able to have that sort of mindset, then like anything that you do is a success in a way. Um
Yeah.
and I do some just chatting streams on my streams sometimes as well, and like sometimes I upload the VODs to YouTube. And one of them that I uploaded is a discussion on loss, where I talked about like what defines loss and like what defines a success, and like is success something that's tangible, and like even if you lose something, you still like gain experience that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Like if you
Oh
like it
yeah,
could be
definitely.
something.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's definitely just seeing the glass half full. Because some people when they lose for example, a tournament match or an entire tourney, they just think I should have done this, I should have done that,
yeah,
or
I mean
this
it's
happened because
natural.
of X, happened because of Y, and maybe they enter in this very pessimistic mindset where all they do is look at the loss instead of
Yeah,
looking at the full experience and what you learn from it.
yeah, like you gain so much more almost like from loss, and like sometimes like because of your losses, like they shape you into becoming more like having more success in the future that than you will have ever gotten if you never experienced loss in the first place. So that's like I don't know, something. If you want to like hear more of my thoughts on that, you can probably just watch my discussion video. But
Yeah, yeah. I
my
mean, of course, I will link all of your stuff so they
yeah,
know what to
okay,
check. So
awesome.
one of the first sub questions that I have received is I'm gonna we can try to go through this kind of quickly because inadvertently this has turned out to be probably my longest
Really long.
podcast yet, and
Yeah,
There's not gonna be any
uh,
editing or anything, so this is gonna be uploaded on YouTube. I don't want this to be 4 hours long, so let's just
okay.
to try to fire through those, because at the end
Okay,
it's
okay.
kind of short
Yeah.
questions. So
Yeah, and
this
like,
one,
I'll just clarify. I'll clarify now. Like, if people want more detailed answers from me, like you can always ask for more information. Like you can message me or something like that, or like stop by my stream and just ask a question, and I'm pretty welcome to answering stuff.
all right. So first question, I think you kind of answered already because when you talked before about your problem with galloping and whatnot. But
Uh-huh.
first question is, which skill set in particular did you struggle the most with developing?
Yeah, definitely it's stamina. Not necessarily because I didn't know how to train stamina, but because it's like a huge commitment to train stamina. And yeah, it takes consistent practice and it's something that like you really have to be motivated to stay on top of. Um and, like if you're not careful, like your practice sessions won't really be pushing you further. They'll just kind of be getting you back to where you were before. So yeah, definitely yeah, stamina is something that has kind of been a little behind my other skills for the most part.
Yeah.
And I
And
think it took me the longest to train as well.
yeah, there was also, obviously the opposite question of which skill set was the easiest for you, but I think you also responded by saying that you kind of had this more affinity towards finger control and stuff like that, like low BPM.
Oh, yeah, I think like because I often would go back to my old scores and like try to improve accuracy, not only does that improve my accuracy, but I think more so like I had a very natural ability to like read patterns. I think reading like pattern processing probably came very natural to me um, through like playing those like more fundamental maps and like without even really realizing it, I was able to like um like establish my fundamental reading very well by playing those sorts of maps and like that's like sort of something that I discovered and realized on my own and that's like something that nowadays I try to preach a lot is like the importance of fundamentals and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely reading, I'd say.
Yeah, and especially if you watch the OSU PhD video, you will figure this out. So I
True.
invite
Watch
you to do so.
OCPHD. Yeah, me too.
So, how did you switch from playing almost nothing besides nomod to varying your skill set with different mods?
um so um hidden is a separate case because it's more about like learning to read in a different way. It's just kind of about building up fundamentals, just like you did with Nomad, but just only the reading aspect and like with hidden. Hard work and double time. I don't know. I don't want to go too into this because like this is also answered at the end of OCPHD, but um, you basically need to like ease your way up into like the skills that are tested in like hard work, for example. Let's just assume that like it's AR10 and OD10 and like smaller CS, and like you kind of have to work your way from like AR7 maps to AR8 to AR9, 9.3, 9.5, 9.8, and then like once you're nearly at AR10, then you've like sort of eased yourself into like being able to play hard rock. Um, but
So I mean, it's
yeah.
a slow process. You don't just one day wake up and say,
Oh
today I
yeah.
will play hard rock.
Yeah, I mean you can definitely like leave the mod on forever. Like if your goal as a player is like I only want to be good at hard rock, then like obviously like you should develop your fundamentals first before you get into playing hard rock, but um if you just leave the mod on forever, then like eventually you'll be able to play it. So um
Yeah,
because like
yeah.
AR7 with double time or AR7 with hard rock is AR 9.8, so it's not all AR10, but yeah, working your way up is really the bottom line.
So, do you think OSU tournaments could potentially go mainstream and fuel the fire for OSU esports? Now, I want to link this more to Lazer as well because that client is going to be completely new, kind of revolutionize, and maybe even renew the game itself. So, who knows really how far could it go? But yeah, what do you think of OSU tournaments specifically, given your experience?
Yeah, for sure. Like OSU tournaments are because OSU is a very flashy game. Like it doesn't take much baseline knowledge to know like if something is hard or not. Like you take a more like complex game, um, like CS:GO or League or something that requires extensive knowledge to really know what's going on. But with Osu, like you see a lot of stuff on the screen. Like you see like high spacing, you see something very fast, and like you can tell just from like simple numbers like the accuracy and the score, like who's winning and like who's doing well. And so like it's like very simple to understand, and so I think it makes it very welcoming for like people that don't even really play the game to follow along with the tournament match and like be very excited for like the people that are performing well. And like definitely like some mainstream creators have shown quite a lot of interest in OSU tournaments even. So
Yeah, even
yeah, there's a lot
Cloud9,
of potential. Yeah,
like
yeah, there's a lot of potential.
in the gaming sphere.
Yeah, yeah, and like some active tournament staff members have been like trying to make use of that and like trying to grow the scene, like having higher prize pool tournaments, like reaching out to sponsors. So yeah, I think it's not a matter of if but when at this point. Like it, yeah.
So, just because you were curious about some of the
Oh yeah.
questions that I decided to take away. It's not like because they were extremely bad questions. It's just that it was stuff that was not only extremely obvious that we were gonna talk about it. For example, there's this question: "What was your first tournament experience?" which we very much
Uh
talked about,
yeah.
or
Okay.
like stuff like how do you improve in this? How do you improve in that? Well,
Oh,
there's the
watch OSU PhD.
yeah. Watch the OSU PhD if you want to know
Yeah, but
some.
I do have plans on making more in-depth videos on like how to train certain skills because sometimes in that video I only talked about what the skill is. So definitely I think look out for that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, see, this is normally where I would ask chat to give me some of their questions, some of their epic, insane questions. But the thing is, I'm pretty sure most things have been answered. But I mean, if you guys want to give me anything, you are free to do so. For the next 30 seconds or so, you can ask anything. I will start off with a question that's become kind of a meme in the
Uh-huh.
podcast. And yeah, in fact, I already saw it in the chat. So, do you prefer ketchup or mayonnaise?
Oh, mayo. I don't like ketchup.
Very nice, man. See, we are on the same wavelength for that
Oh,
particular subject.
let's
Unfortunately,
go.
there are some also players with subpar taste who prefer ketchup, but hey, I mean, it's not my fault. I can't do anything about that.
True. Okay,
Do
how
you
did I
like
get
Among Us? Of course he does. Didn't you see his speedruns?
Oh, true. You should look at my YouTube channel. There was a time like while I was working on OC PhD, like I didn't want to start making other OC content because I wanted to like finish that project. But like in the meantime, I would like make like random Among Us videos, including like Among Us speedruns. So yeah, you can find those on my
Yeah,
YouTube
actually, you know
channel.
what's funny? That video was the one that really blew up, I believe, because it got
Yeah, it
plenty
has
of
like
like hundreds and thousands of
980K, one
views.
of them.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts, man. Nearing 1 million views for the task speedrun.
Yeah. I do have like some like gameplay highlights of Among Us for fun that I uploaded, like just like because like why not? It's my channel. I do what I want.
All right, fair
um,
enough. How to not
how did I
quit?
get?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'll just like I can go through like a bunch of these quickly, especially if I think it won't take long. How did I get the name DigitalHypno? Is a combination of Digimon and Pokemon because I used to argue about it with my brother, and then one day I was like, you know what, just settle our differences, combine the two, and so when I made my online username, I just combined Digimon and Pokemon. Hypno
Oh,
isn't really.
that
It's not
sounds
a
very good.
Pokemon that like Hypno is not even like very high on my tier list of Pokemon. It's just kind of a random Pokemon name that I thought of. Um, what do you think a healthy play session would look like? Depends on what you're focusing on, but really just warm up gradually, especially like you have to keep in mind like your focus levels for that day, like how much energy you have, but like warm up comfortably and warm up with something that tests your fundamentals and like eases your fundamentals into play. So like for warming up cursor control, I like to play like 1-star maps um, that like just focus only on cursor control, or either that or like small CS. And for tapping, I like to play like finger control drills like Flamingo, or like long stream practice maps for like speed, stamina.
And if
Um,
you guys don't know what flamingo is, you should check out.
check out my YouTube channel. I have a video
Yes,
about it.
yes, that sounds
Flamingo
good.
method. How to not quit out of frustration due to sucking at stream hack. Um,
We are trying to figure that out ourselves.
I think just take a step back and like try not to jump into like s- streams that are like more complex than you're capable of. Like try to develop your tapping form. I think a lot of people try to like learn how to stream without learning how to move their fingers back and forth, basically. So like you need to develop fundamentals and stuff like that. How fond am I of cats? I think they're nice. I have two cats, no dogs. I think I'm more of a cat person for sure, but I'm very like sanitary. I'm like I don't know, very like sanitation aware, I guess. So like I don't really like petting my cats that often because then I like I feel this compulsive need like I have to wash my hands afterwards because like, I
Mm,
can't touch anything. So
yeah, I also love cats, but unfortunately I'm allergic, so that's a tough reality to live in.
oh, that's okay. I think you get like all the enjoyment comes from just looking at them. I feel like
True, true. That's why all I
you
need is YouTube videos.
true, yeah, you're not really missing out.
I
How to
think,
prepare or
yeah,
warm up for
exactly.
a
I was
tournament?
just reading that. I think that's a good stopping point. It's a very good question. You can even
Okay,
expand
so
on that a bit.
how to prepare or warm up before a tournament match? Um, so one, I think it's really important. So focus because like in tournaments you only have one run. So like being like well focused is really important. So being well fed and well rested is like a prerequisite to like being able to play well in a tournament. And aside from that, I think like I mentioned with like warming up with like fundamental stuff, I think like making sure you have like a really developed warm up that day, not really developed, but like very like grounded, like sort of like from the ground up warm up that like gets you really into like the swing of things. Consistency, like you like your focus is in check with your sleep and like having eaten something decent recently. Your cursor control is in check from like playing like very fundamentally controlling like one star maps I find to be best, where you focus basically like what I mean by one star maps is like try to copy Otto's cursor movement and like as a result you'll end up like keeping your cursor super stable and you'll develop your cursor control abilities that way at like a very fundamental degree and that translates well to um like cursor movement and like just like everything in general, just cursor control in general. Um, so yeah, but aside from that, like freshen up on the map pool maps that you might want to play one more time, and but like don't feel pressured to play through maps that you, especially like if you're already comfortable with them. Focus more on like getting yourself playing well, and then if you're playing well, then you'll end up getting good scores, even if you like aren't like even if you don't have the map memorized pretty much. So yep,
Yeah.
warm
So
up. Basically, it's just like be focused and warm up and like make sure you're familiar with the map pool and like you should be okay.
I'm sorry to you guys. I know you are real gamers, so your diet basically consists of just chips and, soda. Then you don't get any sleep either. So maybe in order to be a good tournament player, you may want to look into fixing that. But hey, it's
Yep.
2021. There's the pandemic. I won't judge you, okay? I don't judge you. I don't have a sleeping schedule either. Well,
One thing I do want to mention is that I think a long-term goal for me because I made the OC PhD video and I plan on making a tournament PhD video pretty much where I talk about like all these tournament concepts in depth. So yeah, look out for that. So I'll definitely try to talk about that stuff and also like other ways to prepare yourself for a tournament match in more detail. But yeah, like I said, if you want to understand things in more detail, you can always just ask me in DM or something like that.
so you guys, if you want to check Habib's or DigitalHypno's stuff online. I will link some links down there in the description to his YouTube channel, Twitch, and even his Discord. Actually, because I mean, as he explained, he does have a Discord for his community now, which you are absolutely
Mhm.
free to join if you have any other questions or if you want to study languages. Really, anything is there. Anything is there for your own preference and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Yep. And much appreciated. Thank you, Spaza, for being here. I know sometimes it can be hard to, deal with, creators that are so much smaller than yourself, so sometimes unworthy of your time being such an amazing content creator.
Ah, yes.
But
Oh man. Oh,
oh
yes. The
oh
ego. Oh
man.
my goodness. Ah,
um
yes.
well, yeah, I think it was really fun being on this podcast. I think like, yeah, Spaza is like honestly a really great guy. I think he has a really funny sense of humor and stuff like that. So if you guys for some reason aren't followed, aren't subbed, aren't in his Discord server, you're not following his everything, go check him out. I think Spaza is really cool, and you guys should consume his content and feel his ego further.
Very nice, very nice. So I will send your money on PayPal later for this advertisement. It's it's definitely not something he said out of honesty. I mean, obviously I told
Oh.
him. So yeah, I mean I can do that later. Don't worry about it. I have 1 Bitcoin. No, that's not true.
Oh,
All right,
oh.
all right. Thank you very much for being here, man. I really appreciate that, and
Yep.
I will hope to see you around sometime. Hopefully during an EU-friendly live stream.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. Be on the lookout for stuff like that. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. If you're watching from YouTube, much appreciated for making it to the end, whether you listened all the way through or you skipped here. But be sure to subscribe to Spaza and look out for more content.
And the
And
podcast is over.